for anybody who's coming back, this is a part 2 of our Onslaught set discussion. This was way back in last week. Unfortunately, I was just coming down with a cold, and now I'm mostly over it.
What?
But
what did I miss, Becca? I'm confused.
This repair company is crappy.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Okay, I see that.
Okay, I don't. Oh, is there an ad or something? I don't know.
No, she's saying. Okay, so this repair company is crappy. Okay. So probably something to deal with her.
Something happened, but it doesn't look like she's there at the moment. So, anyway. Yeah, I got my little shirt on with chroma on the back.
I need to get
Probably can't see that, but that's from back in this era. And we went through last time around and covered white, blue, and black before I called it, just because we didn't have time. And I was struggling with my runny nose, which didn't help at all. So today, hopefully we can finish up the set. We're going to cover red, green, the lands, the artifacts. And interestingly, Onslaught was at a time still, not only with the classic borders, but not every set featured gold cards or multicolor cards. And this one sure doesn't. I mean, it has a couple of cards that use multiple colors. Most of the overlapping between colors, though, is encouraged through the creature types. So you've got, zombie goblins to get you to play black-red, and you've got zombie clerics to try to build a black-white deck and things like that. And beasts are sort of in both red and green, so we're going to be covering that angle today. And that's how most of this was encouraged. So let's get this flipped around so we can get to the cards. Where are we? Red. Alright, here's where we ended up with black. Now, my first introduction to this set, really, was with one of the promo decks. Each set that came out had about 4-ish pre-constructed decks that you could buy with a rare or two and on different themes. I'm pretty sure they've stopped doing this I don't know when they stopped doing this, but sometime they stopped doing this. And the first one I had was a beast deck. Aether Charge was one of the highlights of that beast deck to me, because if you could get this on the table, whenever a beast comes into play under your control, you may have it deal 4 damage to target opponent. So every time you play a beast, just smack 4 to the face on top of getting your monster in play. It was pretty sweet. Is it just me, or does that meteor have teeth? Yes. I rather enjoyed this card. Even though it's not technically great, 5-cost enchantment is pretty slow. Yes, this is part 2. Part 1, we covered blue, white, and black. So now we're continuing on with red, green, and the lands and artifacts. And some other random thoughts. Aggravated Assault. So basically, this was a repeatable, relentless assault. Oh, don't worry, we just got started. You haven't missed much. Only anime, thanks for coming. Oh, we're doing well. So yeah, Aggravated Assault, an enchantment for 3, and you can pay 5 to untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. Play this ability anytime you could play a sorcery. So if you had the mana, you could just attack, and then attack again, and untap and attack again, and untap and attack again. It didn't happen much, because it's very expensive, but it was a neat concept card, anyway. And just having it there to threaten was certainly something that would make your opponent think. And if they had enchantment removal, this would be a big target. Yep, Magic the Gathering. That's what we're talking about. Onslaught, which was the last block, the big set for the last block that had the classic borders. And it was a very tribal, I guess is the term, deck, where you had, different creature types, like red and green are big for beasts. But here's a bird, so if you're playing a bird deck, potentially this would be one. 5 cost for a 2/2 flying, and you can sacrifice a goblin. So if you're playing goblin birds, there you go. Here's a crossover card. Pay 2, sacrifice a goblin. Airdrop Condor deals damage equal to the sacrificed goblin's power to target creature or player. And goblin decks were usually a little low on flying things, so this would be something you could throw into a goblin deck, get some use out of its ability, and have a bit of flying on your board. I mean, since Alpha, Goblins had Goblin Balloon Brigade, but that's, that was about it. I think Goblin Ski Patrol and Ice Age, you could give it +2/+0 trample and flying until end of turn, but then it died. Yeah, goblins struggle with reliable flying stuff, so this is probably one of the more useful options in that way if you don't mind throwing in a bird. But goblin decks usually wouldn't go for this. It's just too overcosted. Goblins like to play lots of little cheap things that can drop quickly. Avarax. This was one of the cards that came in that Beast starter deck that I got. So I remember this well. Did I answer which?
Was it Windweaver that you were answering? The Magic the Gathering? Yes.
I think so.
Okay.
So yeah. 3/3 haste for 5 isn't wonderful. You can pay 2 for fire breathing, basically, +1/+0 until end of turn. And when Avarax comes into play, you may search your library for a card named Avarax, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. So it comes out and can attack that turn, and it replaces itself in your hand with another copy of it. So if you've got multiple copies, it just threatens to add another one to the board each turn. Depends on the state of the board. If this is becoming a serious threat on the board, then being able to do it every turn could be good. But otherwise, you're just saving up some bodies, I guess. And each one you play, maybe with the other flash, you get the 4 damage drop. So that is that. Oh, welcome, Alias.
It doesn't seem to be the same without Alias. He's kind of like become an unofficial family member. I said it, Alias. There you go.
There's an ugly goat of a beast. Battering Craghorn. This was also in the beast deck. 3/1 first strike for 4, and you could morph it. So you could get the drop on someone with a morph, potentially, but...
Congrats on the adoption. I just say unofficial.
Their skeletons can be found all over Skirk Ridge, tangled in each other's horns. Yeah.
Did you see that?
Where are we? Elias, what do you mean, but it's good that... what you're asking?
No, gaming or Hank. He's like, nice, congrats on the adoption, after I said unofficial family member.
Nice.
And Alias like, yes, I'm an unofficial family member.
There you go. We do enjoy having you in these streams for sure. Blistering Firecat. This was the souped up ball lightning. So it's got trample as well as haste. It's a 7/1 instead of a 6/1. Costs 1 more colorless to the casting cost. At the end of turn, you have to sacrifice it. Yeah, and you can morph it for 2. So you could play it just for 3. And then get the surprise in. When it attacks or something. So, I remember this being popular. Honestly, at the time, I never had one. So, I don't remember if I've ever actually tried using this card yet. I did like ball lightning types, though, back in the day. And, the difference between 7/1 and 6/1 on this type of card isn't a lot, but it makes a surprising difference when all of a sudden 3 of these can finish off an opponent from full health, as opposed to 6/1, where that'll still leave them on 2. Of course, 2 is not a big problem for playing red, because you usually got some other burn spells kicking around, but it's a subtle little difference. Yeah, the trample and haste is typical for Fireball too, or not Fireball, Ball Lightning. Yeah, so, yeah, that's what it is. It's just a hair tougher for a hair more, but you can morph it. Still flavorful and nice.
I want to thank my manager, my makeup department, and my almost adopted unofficial parents for the opportunity.
Right. Next, we've got Break Open. So, instant for 2. Target face down creature. Turn target face down creature and opponent controls face up. So if they've got a morph creature, this just flips it on them. It's so narrow that I don't remember these being used much, other than maybe in Onslaught draft. But it's a neat concept card that plays into their set mechanic, basically. And again, the mechanic did see a little bit beyond this set, so. There are 2 ways to resolve puzzling situations: thoughtful contemplation or force. After thoughtful contemplation, most barbarians choose force. Now this one's interesting. Brightstone Ritual. Mana rituals have always been potentially pretty strong. For 1 red, you add 1 red to your mana pool for each goblin in play. If you're playing a big Goblin Swarm token deck type thing, this thing could get pretty sick. Drop a couple of goblins early, and this can also help you get out one of your bigger goblin threats, like a Siege Gang Commander or something, which hadn't been released in this set yet. But when was Siege Gang Commander? Was that before this or after this? I think it was after this. Anyways, over the set of this block of sets, and starting in the previous one too, goblins really started to pick up a lot of bigger threats, whereas before they'd always been, a little 1/1 or at the most 2/2 pipsqueaks. They got more abilities and more abilities to swarm, so this could potentially give you quite a boost in the right deck. Wizards fought over the stone to exploit its power. Goblins fight over it because it's shiny. This would be a card that would be fun to have in foil. Unfortunately, I don't think I have one of these in foil, but. Now, Butcher Org. Does anybody remember the second one of these set discussions we did was Fallen Empires? And that was the first appearance of Org, which was a 6/6 trample for 5 that couldn't attack or block if your opponent was attacking with a big creature. It could only block things with power 2 or less, I think. And it could only attack if your opponent had if your opponent didn't have an untapped creature with power 3 or something like that as well. So it was an interesting beastie. This, they eliminated the downsides, but they made it cost an extra 2. So now it's costing you 7 for your 6/6. It doesn't have trample, but basically you may decide you may divide Butcher Org's combat damage as you choose among defending player and or any number of creatures he or she controls. So it's basically super trample. You just pick where you want to put the damage on his side of the board, period, whenever it attacks. That can be pretty nasty and wreck the day if they've got creatures they want to keep out of combat and keep safe. But 7 is a massive cost, and Org is not a popular tribal creature type by any means. So. Next, we got Chain Plasma. So this is sort of the whole chain thing was an interesting way to encourage interaction with multiplayer, and Chain Plasma has the most sort of precedent in terms of previous cards, in that Chain Lightning was way back in Legends, and that was a sorcery lightning bolt for 1 that whoever the target was, you could pay 2 red to do another copy. So that's sort of where they're going from here. Whatever happens to the Org creature type? Did it get snuffed after Stronghold? This isn't Stronghold, this is Onslaught, which came after Stronghold. I don't know if there are other Orgs. to be honest. I haven't kept up to see if they've printed any in the last decade or so, but it wouldn't surprise me if they disappeared. It was never that popular a creature type. So yeah, Chain Plasma costs 2, and it deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and then that player or the creature's controller may discard a card from his or her hand. If that player does, they may copy this spell and choose new targets for the copy. So it costs a little bit more to get going, but to bounce it around, it doesn't need red mana. So that's a lot more wide open to anybody can you do it potentially. Discarding a card is a steep downside though. But again, this could be quite the interesting play depending on the board state in the game of Commander. A lot of choices for people. And I think it's definitely seen some play in burn decks and things.
Poor orgs, they didn't choose to be misspelled orcs.
Yeah. Here's another red beastie, charging slate back, rather. 5 for a 4/3, and it can't block. This one is pretty bad. It was a little overcosted for what it was to begin with, and it's got a downside. It's also got the ability to morph, but its morph cost is the same as its casting cost. So again, technically, you could block with your 2/2 and then morph it. It's still not good. Yeah, Goblin's prized its hide for building rock sled runners. Goblin rock sled was way back in Dark, so it's thematic enough for goblins and beasts and things, but it's not a good card. Commando Raid. Instant for 3. Until end of turn, target creature you control gains. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may have it deal damage equal to its power to target creature that player controls. Yeah. It can be a neat little surprise to get a creature that they had attacked you with or that they're trying to keep out of combat and off that. But it just takes a bit too much setup, usually. Most people would rather just run a burn spell. And we've got Crown of Fury. This one I used to throw into my Goblin deck from time to time, not just because of the lovely art, which is thematic for goblins. Got the Goblin King thing going on. But
ooh, does anybody remember
enchanted
the movie
creature
Legend?
gets +1/+0 and first strike, or you can sacrifice it. That creature and other creatures which share a creature type with it get +0/+1 and gain first strike until end of turn. Passion, fire my heart. Yeah, well, again, in a Goblin deck, all of a sudden, +1/+0 and first strike could make quite a difference in either battle or the amount of damage you can deal to your opponent that turn if you got a free swing. So
These
yeah,
goblins remind me of the movie Legend.
Yeah, the design of the goblins in this set is a little bit unique in its own way. Custody Battle. Now here's another interesting sort of side thing. Enchant creature for 2. Enchanted creature has, at the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent gains control of this creature unless you sacrifice a land. So you play this on one of your opponent's creatures, and it forces them to make choices. And especially in a multiplayer game where this might have to bounce around a little bit, it can get interesting. But again, it's a little bit too random and gives your opponent too many choices to be good. But it's an interesting way to restrict an annoying creature. Put it that way. And you can have some fun interaction out of it.
Hi, Bunny! I missed you!
Ooh, welcome. Not played since 2016. I'm trying to remember when the last time I actually sit down for a game was. I think I tried playing a game with one of the kids about a year ago.
I remember when Abram was really little. He was like a new baby still, and you were trying to play Magic with him. More for a photo opportunity, probably, but it was so cute.
Yeah, could be. There's less distractions when it was just Abram.
Yeah.
Dragon Roost. This one was had some notoriety. I'll put it that way. It gained a lot of interest, but man, is it expensive. A 6-cost enchantment that doesn't do anything the turn you play it, unless you got another 7 mana. Yeah, and all it does is pay 7, put a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying into play. So you get a 5/5 flying dragon for 7 whenever you feel like, but that's a lot of mana to just throw into, I want another creature, I want another creature. Now, if you got it on the board and your opponent doesn't deal with it, you've always got a way to get more creatures if the board, if you got enough land. So it was enough to get people's interest, but it was never a competitive card just because the cost is so high. A powerful mage created the roost to guard a portal between the planes. The mage is long gone, but the dragons still keep watch at the gate. This one, interestingly, when I was putting together the set, I didn't think I owned a copy of. But then I found a binder that I'd bought off somebody with a random collection, and they had a Dragons page, and there was one of these in there.
This is the binder you picked up in town?
Yeah. So I actually had one, so that was another good thing to come out of that particular purchase, which we got a good deal on. You got a pretty good
deal on it, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. It wasn't a lot of high-end stuff, but there were some interesting things.
A high school student, or just out of high school?
Maybe. There's a lot of sort of playable uncommons and stuff, too, so it's commons and uncommons. But Dwarven Blast Miner. How did you guys come across the company fixing the... Oh, this isn't for me, sorry.
There's a conversation going on.
Never mind. Dwarven Blast Miner. So 1/1 for 2. Pay 3 and tap it. Destroy target non-basic land. Increasingly, I found, the longer I played, the more and more non-basic lands tended to be around. Being able to morph this, the only reason you'd want to is if you know your opponent's got, might have some non-basics, but they haven't played any yet. So you play it as a morph creature, and there you get a 2/2, which is a little bit more useful in combat. And if it comes up that they start playing 1 or 2, then yeah, you could surprise. But that's the only reason, is to hide that you've got one early on.
I hope I don't see a certain banned mono red goblin in there.
I have no idea
we don't know what's banned and
what's been banned and what's not, but if it's in the set, we'll probably get to it in one way or another.
And I mean, even if it's banned, it doesn't mean you're going to throw it in the garbage or get rid of it. I mean,
well, of course not.
Yeah.
Anyway, but there were some strong goblins in this set. Ember Mage Goblin here is probably not the strongest. You get a 1/1 for 4. It's a wizard, and when it comes into play, you may search your library for a card named Ember Mage Goblin, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. So again, it replaces itself with itself. And Ember Mage Goblin deals 1 damage to target creature or player by tapping. So, it's your Prodigal Sorcerer, Tim type, but as a goblin. It costs 1 extra, and it replaces itself. Usually, that was just too high a cost for a goblin for this effect. Because way back from Tempest, you could get Mog Fanatic, which you could just sacrifice to do 1 damage to anything, and it only cost 1. Being able to do it repeatedly is nice, just by tapping, but it costs 4, which is a lot for a goblin. Anyway.
Alias is talking about the new banned cards that you were telling me about.
Is this the commander bannings? I just saw some headlines about that. Yeah, I don't think any of them were from this set. That was...
No, he's talking about, like, the Mana Crypt, the Jewel Lotus, Nadu, and Dockside Extortionist.
Right. That was the big commander bannings, and a lot of those cards were a little pricey. And were chase cards from sets and everything that they made specifically for Commander, and now you can't use them in Commander, apparently, if you follow any attention to
I'd be really mad
that rules committee's rules.
If I just paid a bunch of money for those cards, and then they banned them and the price dropped.
Right. Or can you imagine you bought a couple of boxes of those sets to keep sealed and hoping, and then they ban the chase card in the set? Like, that would be annoying. Anyway, Erratic Explosion I do remember being used. Sorcery for 3. Choose target creature or player. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. Erratic Explosion deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to that creature or player. Put the revealed cards on the bottom of your library in any order. So if you got a way to fix what cards on top of your library, like a Brainstorm or a number of others, there are some big casting costs that you could stick on top of your deck, like a Draco for 16, or I guess there's some Eldrazi's now that are pretty expensive casting costs too, sort of in the 10 to 15 range. Yeah, there's different things you could stack on top of your deck and then get some pretty heavy damage out of this card. It does take some setup though. Fever Charm. So here's the red charm. Choose one. Target creature gains haste until end of turn. So if you've got an extra mana, your creature can swing as a surprise when it comes into play. Or target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. A little bit of a combat trick. Or just some extra damage if you got a free shot. Or Fever Charm deals 3 damage to target wizard. Very narrow. Very narrow, and most wizards aren't 3 toughness. So yeah, it's a little overkill for most wizards too, if it could kill them at all. Next, we have Flamestick Courier. Goblin, 2/1 for a 3. You may choose not to untap Flamestick Courier during your untap step, and you can pay 3 and tap it. As long as it remains tapped, target Goblin gets +2/+2 and haste until end of turn. So, whenever you got a Goblin that comes in, you can pump it and give it haste and send it at them, and then you could choose to leave this guy tapped if you don't want to be spending more money to keep the other one pumped and bigger. Yeah, this was a very niche card. I don't remember it seeing much play, but interesting. And speaking of niche, yeah, Goblin Machinist or Machinist, I guess it is also quite unique in that way. A 5-cost Goblin in itself is unusual. 0/5 is definitely tougher than most Goblins. And again, it's got the pay 3. This set was published in released in 2002. So it's over 20 years old now.
This was before our kids.
Yeah, sure was.
Before we were married.
This is when I was still in university.
We were youngins.
Oh yeah, we hadn't met yet. Pay 3, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. So just like the Erratic Explosion, Goblin Mechanist gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the card's converted mana cost.
Although I think we got
with revealed cards on the bottom of your library in any order. Now you can do it repeatedly, and it can start to pump in a hurry depending on how high your casting costs are. So that's definitely a threat. Depending on how you get it set up,
we did get
potentially a pretty big one.
After we were married and out here, right?
Yeah, when we were out here is when we got the boxes.
Yeah, the
of
dinosaurs
Onslaught.
still walk their.
Yeah, not quite. This was
what you call a dinosaur.
This was a big tournament card for the Goblins. The Goblins started to get real nasty cards for Goblin decks starting here. Well, I think actually before this set, yeah, there was some from Odyssey block as well, for sure. But this one put some gas on the Goblins. Goblin Pile Driver, 2 cost for a 1/2, which doesn't sound bad just on the stats. Protection from blue could certainly be relevant.
I agree.
You don't want this thing hanging on your neck. When it attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking Goblin. So if you've got a lot of little Goblin tokens, this guy could get quite big. And if your opponent happens to be mono blue, or just only has blue creatures out, they can't block it. So, potentially quite threatening indeed. You could even then turn around and use the that bird that chucked Goblins too, that was at the start of the red here that we did. After the attack, if it survived, to just do damage, stuff like that. I guess Fling from Stronghold, cards like that as well. Throw enough goblins at any problem, and it should go away. At the very least, there'll be fewer goblins.
Wingweaver's asking the difference between the color cards.
The color cards?
Probably the, the red, the green.
Yeah, I mean, each color has got different flavors, and red is usually more about damage and things, and they've got different tribes. So red in this set is goblins and beasts and stuff like that. Blue had more of the wizards. White is soldiers and clerics and things like that. Black is the zombies, and depending on the set, you might get vampires and other things too. I'm not sure what we're doing there. But yeah, it basically comes down to different flavors and different types of cards in each. And each one had a different specific basic land. Like red, you were playing mountains to get your red mana, whereas blue had islands and black had swamps and green had forests. And so it was very just sort of what was your the type of cards you liked playing with, basically. And you could combine. Usually you didn't do more well, I shouldn't say that. There was some people would play a 1-color deck. You could play a 2-color deck. You can even play all 5 colors if you wanted. But it gets trickier to manage the mana you need the more colors you have. So, yeah. Goblin Pyromancer. 2/2 for 4. MHM. So this game has almost every mythical creature available. They've worked in a lot over the years. So yeah, most mythical creature you can think of, you can find one somewhere in one of the sets. Some of them more common than others. And they've got a few different creature types which have been unique to Magic over the years and I've never seen anywhere else. So it's their own, like the Eldrazi, like the Morph creatures, and like Slivers is another big one. Yeah, they did get creative with some of their creature typing, but a lot of it is just, standard fantasy type creature fare, or, animals and things like that. When Goblin Pyromancer comes into play, all goblins get +3/+0 until end of turn. At end of turn, destroy all goblins. So yeah, this guy was tricky to use. Basically, you wanted a goblin sacrifice outlet. Like there were certain things that were sacrifice a goblin to do something with. So you'd play this guy, get the big combat boost, attack with things, and then find some way to sacrifice this guy before end of turn so he didn't kill all your team. Interesting concept. But yeah, you had to really build around him. And being a rare, you usually didn't turn up too much, just casually. Old. Yeah, well, getting that way. I do plan on doing a stream talking about the early waves of slivers, the first 3 waves in particular. I sort of lost track a little bit after that, but I do have some from the 4th wave too, I believe.
You have a comment at the bottom there.
That's a good board wipe when your opponent is playing changelings. I guess it would be, for sure, unless they find a way to get rid of it. Or if your opponent's playing goblins, for that matter, you could do that too. Goblin Sharpshooter. Now, if you're looking for a goblin that can tap to deal 1 damage to target creature or player, like the Ember Mage, this one was usually your better option. It costs 1 less than the Ember Mage, and doesn't untap during your untap step, but whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, you can untap it. So, if you're using it to finish off creatures, yeah, you tap it, kill something, untap it. Tap it, kill something else, untap it. And you can just string off a whole bunch of creatures to finish off, or if your opponent's got lots of 1/1s, this will clear them all out right there pretty well. Assuming it can untap and get a chance to use it. Yeah, with Death Touch, yeah, that could work too. Give it Death Touch and that's even better. But yeah, this one, not quite as popular as the Goblin Piledriver from Onslaught here, but those two, the Sharpshooter and the Piledriver, both saw some tournament play. They were popular additions for the Goblin theme. All right, now.
Welcome in, Poke Trainer Mason.
Goblin Sky Raider. Remember what I said about goblins not doing well with flying? Well, this should look familiar if you've seen my AAA stream, because basically this is Bird Maiden, except they made it a goblin. So it benefits now from all the creature type bonuses. But
there's an online version of Magic the Gathering.
I think there's 2 different ones that they've come up with over
Somebody
the years.
just asking if they can play it on PC.
No, over the years there've been like 3 or 4 different ones.
There's
but there is Magic Online, and I think there's another. I lose track because I don't like to play digital cards. If I want to play card games, I prefer to have physical cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried them out, but I used to play Chandelar. That was a neat old Magic game. The AIs were horrible for the computer players, but it was neat to build your little collection. And you got to play with alpha and beta cards, which,
Goblins only fly when you throw them hard enough.
Yeah, well, the Goblin word for flying is more accurately translated as falling slowly, is the flavor text on here. But yeah, basically, like I said, this is Bird Maiden in terms of its stats. Same casting cost, same ability, flying, same size, 1/2. But being a goblin, if you have a Goblin King out, it gets better, or other, bonuses with goblins. That was the main advantage to it. It was a reskin Bird Maiden into goblins.
Why does this...
It didn't see a lot of play, but again, if you were desperate for some flying among your goblins.
Why do I want to watch Willow, the original Willow, now?
I have no idea.
I don't know either. This is making me want to watch Willow.
And now, speaking of that Goblin Wizard, here is a sacrifice outlet for your goblins that was cheap and used fairly regularly. Goblin Sledder. 1 red for a 1/1. Sacrifice a goblin. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So if one of your goblins gets through, you could sacrifice all the ones that are going to die anyway, or not, to make it bigger and deal some extra damage. Let's play Sled. Here's how it works. You're the sled. Yeah, there's the text. I remember this one being used quite regularly as a 1-drop with extra ability. So
it sounds funny.
It is kind of, but it's also kind of scary and harsh. Then you've got the Goblin Taskmaster. Another 1/1 for 1. And you can pay 2. Target Goblin gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So another way to buff your team, but one at a time. And for 2 mana does get expensive, but it's a place to throw your mana if you've already, used up other things. And the ability to morph is, again, interesting here because... you can play it just as a bigger creature if you don't have other goblins around, and then morph it when you need the ability. But usually, from what I remember, this guy just got played as a 1/1 for 1 that had the ability to pump your guys. For some reason, Goblin Fighting School...
It's morphing time.
...isn't a crowded day 1... isn't as crowded on day 2, sorry. Yeah. Next, we got Grand Melee. All creatures attack each turn if able. All creatures block each turn if able. So this is a way to force combat. Again, if you just want to mess with people, it can be fun to throw out there in a big game or something. But usually... it's not too worthwhile. Usually, if you wanted to force specific attacks and things like that, Nettling Imp or other similar effects were better, where you could just target it instead of making it a blanket effect. Gratuitous Violence. This sounds like a Family Channel thing.
Good thing it's nighttime.
Yeah. 5 cost, lots of red. Enchantment. If a creature you control would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that damage to that creature or player instead. So, yeah, doubling damage from creatures. can get a little nasty. But again, just these are all interesting effects. But enchantments that cost this much and don't do anything when they come into play immediately, usually not that popular.
There is a stupid fly flying around here, and
Hot blood washes away cold reason, and only the Cabal could make a fight to the death more deadly.
I might have got it, but there's more than one.
Next, we've got Insurrection. So, big 8-cost sorcery to try to swing the game. Untap all creatures and gain control of them until end of turn. They gain haste until end of turn. So all of a sudden, all the creatures on the board untap and get haste.
Oh my goodness. Stupid flies.
Under your control.
It's not a stupid fly, it's a flying goblin.
Well, they're certainly pesty enough to be.
Well, after I hit the
But yeah, I used to run one of these in my Niv Mizzet EDH commander, whatever you want to call it, deck. Just as a nice surprise finisher, if there's a lot of stuff on the board, if you can get up to 8 mana, all of a sudden, ooh, I can attack with everything on the board is a pretty nasty surprise if they don't have a way to counter it. Maybe they wanted to be on the winning side for once, said the Lavamancer. This is actually one of the... We'll get to the foils a bit at the end here too, but this is one I was lucky enough to pull a foil version. So the foils in this set were not nearly as common as they've become since then, and the rares especially. Like they're... I think, like I said, in 3 boxes, I can recall 3 foil rares that we opened. You didn't get many. Perfect for making new friends and losing them in the same turn.
I was talking about playing Insurrection, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, Insurrection is... Yeah, it can do that sort of thing. Kaboom! This one was a little too random, as I recall. 5-cost sorcery. Choose any number of target players. For each of those players, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. Kaboom deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to that player. Then you put the revealed cards at the bottom of your library in any order. So this one was to players, specifically. And you could do it to a bunch of players, but again, it depends on how you were able to stack your deck or not, and how big your casting costs were, and, I don't remember it ever seeing much play. I suppose somebody has made good use of this in a commander deck recently, or not recently, but over the years. It could be quite nasty if you can set up your top cards with some nasty surprises, but same goes for playing some land destruction. Land destruction was always a great tactical strategy, in my opinion.
And why do
especially when you can find a way that it's not expected.
And why do you think I don't play against you anymore?
Yeah, well,
because when I was trying to learn, I couldn't even get started. I just didn't want to play, so he lost a.
I mean, when we were first learning Pokemon too, I remember that was Jeff's favorite Pokemon strategy was energy removal. He made an energy removal deck with like Dragonair, I think it was, and just energy removal and super energy removal cards, and just energy denial. Same sort of concept, resource denial decks.
If I can't even play anything, I don't really want to play them. If somebody's
or discarding your opponent's hands, Yeah, card discard was another popular, that was more a black thing. Lavamancer's skill. Enchant creature for 2. Enchanted creature gets this creature deals 1 damage to target creature or ability by tapping. If enchanted creature is a wizard, it deals 2 damage to target creature or player.
Yeah, for the most part you can. I think there's been some times where I tried.
Generally, this card was too risky because it's bad enough playing a creature that's a Tim, but making a creature a Tim with an enchantment just means you're setting yourself up for a 2-for-1 more often than not. But any sort of fun control. Counters are not fun and always should go play solitary or something. Well, yeah, I could see that. The first ever deck that I took to a tournament and won with was a stasis deck. So, and there's lots of different variants of stasis deck. And they're also renowned for not being fun for your opponent. But they can be quite strong, especially if your opponent's not equipped to deal with them or aware of them. Lay waste. Destroy target land. Speaking of land destruction. Costs 4, which is a bit more than Stone Rain, but you can cycle it. Discard this card from your hand to draw a card. So if you don't have a need to destroy a land at the moment, or just change your mind, you can always get a card to replace it. Yeah, Stasis is fun.
Evil laugh.
Time Elemental was a classic to go with it. The specific Stasis deck I did, maybe I'll do a deck video on it sometime. It was a Chronostasis deck with Chronotogs and Kismets and all that fun angle.
Oh, you know what could be fun?
Nothing like beating your opponent by skipping all your turns.
You know what could be fun? You could get people in chat to build a deck and then have 2 people try and play it.
That could be interesting. The logistics would be tricky to work
No, you
out.
have to show like the cards that you have and they could ask, "Hey, do you got this?" And
yeah, that could be a whole lot of fishing around because that's a lot of boxes to go through.
within the whatever you have provided or something, you say, "Yeah, no, I can't."
How to play Magic the right way.
Could be fun.
Yeah. Lightning Rift, a red and 1 enchantment. Whenever a player cycles a card, you may pay 1. If you do, Lightning Rift deals 2 damage to target creature or player. So again, reusable direct damage, like good old Stormbind and stuff. Except Stormbind, you have to discard a card to use. This is, you have to cycle a card to use. A little bit different, but probably just as limiting, really. But still, could see some use in the right deck.
If you do like draft deck building or something like that, so you don't have to go, like, say you're opening packs of something.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
Get them to build a deck with what you open.
Maybe.
That could be interesting.
Like if we did another one of those dollar store packs and, let's see what sort of a deck we can build out of this.
Yeah.
It would take some time. Mana Echoes. This card used to be worth a couple bucks, apparently. But I wasn't aware of that, and it ended up sitting in my bulk binder for years. Nobody ever snapped it up either. 2 red and 2, so 4. Another enchantment that doesn't do much immediately when you play it for 4. But whenever a creature comes into play, you may add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool for each creature you control that shares a type with it. So if you've got a lot of creatures on the board and this, you can get a lot of mana out of it. This specifically, I believe, they still have Magic Dollar Store packs. I don't know. I haven't seen them much lately, but we still have a sealed one that sitting here that we picked up a couple years ago that we never got around to opening. We opened one on the channel over the summer, and we still have a second one here.
But this was the most recent thing that we did pick up in the summer.
Yeah, we did find one of those, just like a little booster pack size one. I find these bigger fat pack ones are interesting because if you want to actually sit down and try and do something with it with a friend and just pull out a pack,
I picked a couple of them up.
Anyway, I was talking about Mana Echoes.
Sorry.
Yeah. This card looks like it'd go real sweet with Sliver Queen, which you can pay to make another Sliver token. And so that's just putting you more tokens on the board. And then you've got more tokens on the board, so it gets you more mana when it comes into play, more than what you paid for it, probably. So if you've got 2 or 3 and you get it going, you just get as many slivers and mana, colorless mana, as you want, basically. And then, yeah, it's just finding a way to kill your opponent with all those sliver tokens and mana. But, yeah, this could be pretty strong in that combo anyway. Not sure if there's other better combos, but that's the one that came to mind.
Alias has a master
Okay. When you talked about it, I thought you meant you hunting for them.
At dollar store, so going and hunting for...
Oh.
Like, you know how some people actually have videos that they go and edit and stuff? We don't do the editing stuff so much.
No, not so much.
It would be nice if we had the talent or somebody that would do it.
Now, here's an org as distinct from the ogre No, this is Ogre as distinct from the Org, rather, that we just saw. 5 cost, 3/3, trample haste. When Menacing Ogre comes into play, each player secretly chooses a number. Then those numbers are revealed. Each player with the highest number loses that much life. If you are one of those players, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Menacing Ogre. So you get to play a little guessing game, and depending how you do on it, you might get a 5/5 instead of a 3/3. Woohoo. Yeah, and again, it's got haste, so comes out and starts swinging right away. It can take someone by surprise, but again, even at a 5/5 trample haste for 5, it's not special anymore. Back in the day, it might have been.
I don't remember how charged the phone is. So
or for 5, rather. Nosy Goblin. This one's funny.
Come on. There we go.
All right. So here you got a 2/1 Goblin for 3, and you can tap and sacrifice it to destroy target face-down creature. So yeah, this is again with all those morph creatures kicking around. Or I guess technically, if you played Camouflage, which I'll pull out here for a second just to remind people. I talked about this last time, but... shoot. It also deals with face-down stuff, so it can be quite confusing to play Camouflage with...
hey, Boyd, welcome in.
With morph creatures. Rearrange your attacking creatures and place them into face-down, and reveal which is which only after defense is chosen. So you shuffle up your creatures face-down. No one knows what's what to block with. Again, when your creature's already face-down for morph, this gets really confusing.
Becca, your reply... about dealing with idiots, with out of context, it sounds like you're talking about chat or us.
Right.
But I know the context now.
Nosy Goblin, yeah. Look at the nose for sure. To his surprise, Furt discovered that the strange creatures were not at all like bugs. Yeah. Pinpoint Avalanche. For 5, instant, Pinpoint Avalanche deals 4 damage to target creature. The damage can't be prevented. You know, it's specifically at a creature, which is a bit of a downside, and it costs 5 for 4 damage. Yeah, it can't be prevented, but this is just costs too much for what it does, typically speaking. It was common, so you might pick it up in a draft, because it can be handy as a spot removal card, but for Constructed, this never saw much play. Some solve problems by thinking and talking. Others use rocks. Togo, Goblin Weaponsmith. Then you've got the star for 4 for the Goblins. This one did see some play too. Haste.
Ooh,
Reckless one's power and toughness are each equal to the number of goblins in play. So again, goblins were known for, whether it was from Goblin Warrens back in Fallen Empires or other things since then, like Siege Gang Commander, it was not uncommon to get lots of goblins in play. So this coming out and being a big, hasty beat stick, and goblins usually aren't huge, so getting a huge one could be nice. This one did see some play for sure.
The Goblin King.
Well, no, it's not Goblin King. That's a different card.
Not played by Bowie.
No, I know a lot of people who played this. Maybe it's a more casual thing. Maybe it didn't see so much tournament play, but it was fun. And definitely added a little variety to your Goblin decks anyway. You got your Goblin Avatar. Next, we got Risky Move. Enchantment for 6. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player gains control of Risky Move. Whenever you gain control of Risky Move from another player, choose a creature you control and an opponent. Flip a coin. If you lose the flip, the opponent gains control of that creature. I don't know anybody who used this, because basically it's one of those cards that you play just to cause chaos on the board. And yeah, it's an extra thing to do each turn, and usually it, might result in giving a creature away. So
Silver Goblin and Silver. Welcome in, Silver. Says Goblin's the best.
yeah, well, it's part of the great WAG, if you're into Warhammer. Goblins are a whole cultural phenomenon in some games. Next, we got Rorix the Bladewing. This is not impressive by today's standards, but back then, a one-color legendary creature, 6 mana for a 6/5 flying haste. Keep in mind your most common comparison point was Shivan Dragon, which cost 6, but 2 less red, for a 5/5 flying fire breathing. So haste made it a little bit more surprise. It had 1 extra power just to come down as well. This one definitely used to see play. And then with Dragonstorm, this saw some more play again later on, because they were looking for dragons that you could get a big storm count going, play Dragonstorm, and drop some hasty dragons to kill them, finish them off right away. So Rorix was one that saw a little bit of a revival with that, but again, even by then, it was starting to be outclassed on power level.
Silver's wanting you to show more goblins so he can screenshot them, or so they can screenshot them.
Well, we're through most of the goblin cards already, and they're on the other page.
Yeah. Are these some over here?
Oh, there's probably a couple more.
Okay, there might be more coming up.
Yeah. But feel free to scroll back. We went through
there you go.
half of them as well.
The magic of live streaming is you can go back and rewatch and stuff.
Searing Flesh. This sorcery for 7 is awfully expensive. Deals 7 damage to target opponent.
What?
Yeah, this is just bad. I mean, it's restricted to only to opponent's face. That is a lot of damage, but 7 cost sorcery. The game is over by the time you got 7 mana most games. Zemo found out the hard way that inflammable and flammable mean the same thing.
We have some very loud neighbors.
Sometimes.
They're just happy.
Here's a goblin.
They're harmless. At least these ones are.
Sparksmith. So 1/1 for 2. Tap it. Sparksmith deals X damage to target creature and X damage to you, where X is the number of goblins in play. So again, it can deal a lot of damage to certain things. It's not too expensive, being a 2-cost Timming creature, but watch the backsplash on that spark wheel, because that definitely can add up.
The box in the back is the Onslaught booster box. Like the box came in. Alias says it's cool art box.
Yeah, I do like the art. That's Ixtor from when we covered him in blue. He's one of the main characters in the set. And again, the set symbol on the front is supposed to look like a morph creature.
String of lights in the background.
Yeah, well, there's that too. If it didn't hurt, how would I know it worked?
I'm going to go close that window.
Madness. Yeah, might as well. And then there's Spitfire Handler. 1/1 for 2 again. Spitfire Handler can't block creatures with power greater than Spitfire Handler's power. And pay what red, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, so it's got fire breathing. Woohoo, fire breathing on a 1/1 goblin for 2.
Oh, I know it's from Onslaught. I'm just saying that it looked cool. Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Figured I'd let those who didn't know.
Then we've got Wolverine. I've heard they're making a new Wolverine card for the Magic Marvel crossover set they're coming out with. They showed a preview of that earlier today.
What they do to that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not too hopeful for it myself.
It might be interesting to open a few packs just to see.
I don't even know if it's going to be packs or if it's going to be secret layers or what it's going to be. I just heard that we're doing one, so I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway,
it's a hairy goblin.
This isn't the first Wolverine creature they've done. There was a grizzled Wolverine back in Ice Age, but this one is 5 cost 3/2. Tap 2 untapped beasts you control. Target creature gains first strike until end of turn. So, again, potentially you could do some tricks with it, but usually beasts are pretty big, so you don't want to be just tapping 2 of them for a combat trick like that. After a few painful experiences, goblins learned not to pick their noses around the beasts. Right?
That's so gross. Oh, the goblins are gross, so I guess...
It's fitting. Starstorm, an instant. 2 red and X, deals X damage to each creature. So this would be basically like Earthquake, except it costs an extra red, so you'd have less mana to put into X. And it deals it to each creature, not just non-flying creatures. So a little bit more powerful, costs a little more.
Yeah, it's nice art.
And then you've got the ability to cycle it. This definitely did see some play too. If you don't need this sort of... and it doesn't deal damage to players. You can't use it to finish your opponent off, but you're not hitting yourself in the face either. You know, pros and cons, but it certainly was a playable version. And the ability to cycle it, again, 3 is a little bit above average cost to cycle something. But if you don't need it, you can get a card to replace it. So there's that. Partick Barbarians didn't complain when the Order started blaming every crisis on the Cabal. Thefraderm. Yeah, that art is nice. This was one of the rares that came in the Beast starter deck. Earlier today, I won with that card. Combined it with Repercussion, and X was ooh. Yeah, that could do some damage. Thefraderm. I liked it. Again, it was the rare in the Beast deck that you got as your precon, but 4/5 for 5 wasn't bad at the time. Only 1 red, so not too bad for your mana fixing. Whenever it deals damage to, whenever a creature deals damage to it, it deals that much damage to that creature. So that's quite efficient at killing things that it fights. And whenever a spell deals damage to Thefraderm, it deals that much damage to the spell's controller. So if you got this on the table and your opponent plays a Starstorm, they will take some damage to the face. Or whatever. But yeah. I liked it. It had some useful bonus abilities on there. Nothing too fancy, but a decent beast.
Yeah, for the Beast deck. I'm definitely into the different sets for the art.
Yeah.
That's why I collect the Pokemon more. I like the Pokemon art. There's some nice art in this set too, but this is more your thing.
Yeah. And well, it was. It's been I've been in and out of it for a while, but
I can collect what I want when the art is nice, like
kinda
like the Princess Bride Secret Lair.
Right. Thoughtbound Primok. A 2/3 flying bird beast for 3. At the beginning of your upkeep, if a player controls more wizards than any other player, he or she gains control of Thoughtbound Primok. So yeah, it's a bird beast for wizard decks. A little bit strange. A 2/3 flying for 3 was pretty decent at the time, but not really special. I don't remember it seeing much play, to be honest. Threaten. Sorcery for 3, untap target creature, and gain control of it until end of turn. That creature gains haste until end of turn. So basically, this was your Insurrection, but just 1 creature, and much cheaper. Just pick a creature to gain control of and untap and swing with. I remember this being used on occasion. It's definitely not the big swing effect like Insurrection, but on a smaller scale, it can still be useful. Especially if you've got a way to sacrifice the creature before the end of your turn. Goblin's motivational techniques are crude, but effective. Thundering Hooves. 4-cost sorcery. Thundering Hooves deals X damage to each creature without flying, and each player, where X is the number of beasts in play. Yeah, again, beasts tend to be bigger and bulkier, so usually by the time you've got a bunch in play, you're already doing pretty good. Wave of Indifference. This was just a fun thematic card. X target creatures can't block this turn. This is a way. Oh, your defenders? Nope, they're not. They're not your blockers you've got available. Nope, they're not going to block this turn, and then swing on through and do what you can. Some people might throw one of these in their deck, but usually wasn't something you wanted a lot of. Darius, yeah, there's a goblin sneaking up on you. So, just saying.
That's fun.
Yeah. And then we got the card that I couldn't find.
You have one somewhere, though?
No, I don't think I do for this one. I don't remember. I might, but I don't think I had it in any deck or anything if I would have had it. It's Words of War, so it's the words for card for red. In Onslaught, 3 cost, enchantment, pay 1. Next time you would draw a card this turn, Words of War deals 2 damage to target creature or player instead. So again, you can just turn your card draws into shocks. It's, that's not a horrible trade-off, but
Call Detective Pikachu.
I don't know. It wasn't something that I saw used much, probably just because nobody I knew had one, but it's something you do have to build around a little bit. And then we're into green. Animal Magnetism. Ooh. 5 cost sorcery. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent chooses a creature card from among them. Put that card into play, and the rest into your graveyard. So again, you're giving the opponent the choice of which creature you're going to get if there's more than one. But if you set it up so there's only one creature, but yeah, that requires some setup, and you're paying 5. So this never saw much use in my experience. This was another creature that was in that beast pre-constructed deck. The Barkhard Mauler, just a common 4/4 for 5 beast. But you could cycle it if you'd rather cycle it. Pay 2, discard this card from your hand and draw a card instead. Yeah. Not much to say about that. It was a body, usually. Biorhythm. This one I think was big in Commander at one point. I'm not sure if it still is, but or no, was it Commander? I don't know. I did see someplace somewhere. I'm trying to remember where now. But 8 cost sorcery is a lot. But green, if you're going to play an expensive card, green is probably the best color to do it in. I mean, black has some Dark Ritual type effects, and red has some too, and has the stuff like the Brightstone Ritual and Mana Flare. But green has got a lot of mana elves and ways to accelerate more lands into play, and it always has. Usually, if you're going to play big, expensive things, green is your color to do it in. Each player's life total becomes the number of creatures he or she controls.
The last comment.
Thanks for the nightmare fuel. I hate those eyes. Okay. Well, this is much cuter, is it? I don't know. Anyway. I have seen life's purpose, and now it is my own. Kamal,
it's the best
Druid,
nightmare fuel
Acolyte. Then we've got Birchlore Rangers. This was an interesting addition for elf decks, for sure.
Those beasts were better.
The Birchlore Rangers is a 1/1 for 1 cost elf, and tap 2 untapped elves you control to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So you can fix it to get any color of mana, but you got to have 2 elves that you're not using for anything else. There's a lot of mana elves that can just tap for mana. So this one would combine well with something like
maybe this
was it Green Ranger, I think.
Maybe this one should be our next raider to hate it.
Oh, who knows? And again, it's got Morph. But this was an elf which you used to be able to do some combos with. It was also a good way to get a splash of red if you were playing mono green elves and just wanted to get a whole pile of mana and then throw a fireball at somebody. There's a few elves that could do that, but this was one of them. This wasn't one of the ones that I used heavily in my elf deck, though. But I used to throw in 1 or 2 copies just because there were certain elves that didn't tap for effects that I did run, and this would give something else I could do with them. So next we got Bloodline Shaman. Again, elf wizard. 1/1 for 2. Tap it and choose a creature type. Reveal the top card of your library. If that card is a creature card of the chosen type, put it in your hand. Otherwise, put it in your graveyard. So, if you're playing again an elf deck, you could get some serious card advantage from this over time if you've got time. Elves, because they tend to be cheap and provide mana, often by tapping, means that you don't need to run quite as many lands in your deck, so you could get more creature hits. I think my mana elf ramping deck, I think I was down to 16 lands. Most decks run between like 24 lands or maybe 20 if you've got a lot of other mana sources available, but elves just had so many I could get away with. I only really needed 1 or 2 lands to get it going, and it was self-sustaining. No yawning, Spocat. You're going to put me to sleep. Right, well, I'm trying not to, but...
Talking about you or me?
Well, it's been me on other days, so...
Well, I just yawned before I walked.
Exactly. So. Brood Hatch Nantuko. The Nantukos were, again, I think those are something unique to Magic the Gathering as well, but they're sort of insect people. 1/1 for 2. Insect Druid. Whenever Blood Hatch Nantuko is dealt damage, you may put that many 1/1 green insect creature tokens into play, and it can morph. So you bring it out as a 2/2 for 3, and then when it gets into a fight, here comes a bunch of bugs. Elves aren't even a creature. They're just mana with power and toughness. Well, sort of. They did make some other elf abilities.
I'll try to yawn quieter.
Now, the Centaur Glade is kind of like the Dragon Roost, except more affordable. So I do remember this one getting thrown into green decks a little bit more regularly, for a time anyway. 5 cost, and pay 4 to put a 3/3 green Centaur creature token into play. You know, whenever you ran out of cards to play, you could just start making Centaurs. The Mirari called to the Centaurs, and all who heard it were forever changed.
When I was making decks or playing decks, didn't I usually go for like the blue, green, white deck type things?
Could be, yeah.
Because I didn't like the...
Now, this chain card costs a little bit more than most. The Chains of Vapor and Chain Plasma and all those. But Chain of Acid for 4.
Well, for me, it was...
Destroy target non-creature permanent. Then that permanent's controller may copy this spell and choose a new target for that copy. So this one isn't a chain that keeps on going and going. It's just, it does, because it's a new copy of this, so it does trigger the other ability again. What got you guys into the game? Well, that's a bit of a story for me.
I just wanted to learn something that you were interested in, so
I got into the game back when I was in high school. I knew people who played. I wasn't overly interested at the time. But I had friends who played, and I think my brother did shortly after that. My first exposure to it was just, I'd see people trading or playing at recess or whatever. And one day, I found a couple of cards that someone had forgotten in a desk at school. And it was, this was back when Revised was still quite the more recent set. I guess. And it was 3 copies of one picture of a revised island and 1 reconstruction. So I didn't know at the time they were all commons. I went to one of the guys who I knew played and said, "Hey, I found these. Somebody probably forgot them." And they said, "Oh, it's commons. Nobody cares. You keep them." So I had 3 islands and a reconstruction as my first 4 cards. And I read them over and got an idea for what they did. And not long after that, my brother wanted to get into the game too. So I think between the two of us, we ended up one Christmas or something with a starter deck of 4th edition and a starter deck of Ice Age to build our first decks with. And yeah, it was interesting. And he had a group of friends who played in his age class, and I had in my class as well. So we both had friends at school or whatever who played. So that's sort of where it started for me. Crown of Vigor.
That's kind of a neat art.
It is. So 2 cost again. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. And sacrifice Crown of Vigor. That creature in that share her creature type with it get +1/+1 until end of turn. This one, again, it's got a nice buffing effect, but I didn't play it as much as the red one. Just because red, it tends to be the more aggressive color that wanted a big creature buffing effect. Whereas usually for green, you'd rather have a big buffing effect on a single creature than something that buffs all your creatures, in my experience. But I could see some people using it. Nice, kind of reminds me of how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Just seeing friends playing and borrowing decks. Now, I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Nor do I collect strictly Pokemon now.
She has the Schwarzenegger jawline.
Yeah, kinda.
Oh my goodness. Growing up on Schwarzenegger movies.
And we've got Elven Riders. 3/3 for 5.
I can see it.
Elven Riders can't be blocked except by walls and creatures with flying and/or walls. So this is another card. Oh, what was it called? But it reminds me of a card again from one of the earlier sets that had the same effect, and I think might have even been the same size. It's just this one's an elf now. Or maybe it's even a reprint. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the other card was. Anyway.
I can already hear "Tap Me If You Want to Live."
Nice.
but in the Schwarzenegger voice.
Yeah. Elvish Guidance, an enchant land. So you'd put this on one of your forests probably. For a blue and 2.
Like
whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds green to his or her mana pool for each elf in play. So that would be in addition to your regular tapping it for green. For every elf, you get more green. So this would be a very similar effect, except you're putting it on a land, to what the Priest of Titania from back in Ursa's block had. And again, big elf mana decks started to become quite popular at this time, and just got more popular with the release of Legions, the next set in the block here, which I think added 2 nice tools for them. They had one that you could tap to give +X to a creature, where X was the number of elves in play, which could be used to keep something alive if there was a board wipe that dealt damage, or just an alternate win condition, being able to swing with a creature and make it huge if you can get an elf through. It also added another one that could tap for mana equal to your elves in play, but could get any color with Wildwood Chandler. So elves really started to pick up around this time. Elvish Path Cutter. 4 cost, 1/2, pay 3, target elf gains forest walk until end of turn. I think back in 7th edition, they made a Lord of Leaves or something, or an elvish lord of some sort that gave +1/+1 forest walk. So there's other more effective ways to give your elves forest walk around. But, you know, in a pinch, in a draft or whatever, this could make your your critter's unblockable. Usually people in draft ended up playing more than one color, so there was often an opponent with a splash of green. This Elvish Pioneer was one of the non-beast cards that made it into that beef precon. 1/1 for 1, and when it comes into play, you may put a basic land card from your hand into play tapped. So it lets you play an extra land that turn.
I don't know what tank.
Sort of accelerate a bit.
Who's Colette? Or is that
probably the message that sells review, I would guess.
Oh, I don't see that.
Anyway.
It's not showing it for me.
Anyway. Yeah. I used to play these occasionally. It does help get your land out a little quicker, but it's not quite as powerful as like a fast bond effect or something. And, you know, an enchantment that lets you do it repeatedly. It's just a one-time thing on your 1/1. Elvish Scrapper. Why are you...
I'm just trying to see it, but I can't.
Okay, well. Alright, Elvish Scrapper. 1/1 for 1. Pay at green and tap Elvish Scrapper, destroy target artifact. So this was Scavenger Folk. And they just made it an elf. So again, another tool for the elf deck. Pre-existing stats and ability and everything. On a different card, they just made an elf version. The stories tell of a distant time when machines overran the forest, destroying everything that lived. That time will not come again. Well, there's been a few machine-type artifact sets that have come since then, so yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme in Magic. Whether it was Mirrodin Block or Scars of Mirrodin or what's probably one of the newer ones. Made a Brothers War type thing with it. Was it with lots of artifacts? I forget. Anyway. Elvish Vanguard. 1/1 for 2. When another elf comes into play, put a +1/+1 counter on Elvish Vanguard. So the more elves you play, the bigger this one gets. You know, attack elves that were getting really tough in themselves wasn't as popular a theme, but you know, if you had one as a rare, I could see throwing it into an elf deck. Trying it out anyway. Our lives are woven together like the tree's branches over our heads, forming a canopy that protects us all. Now, this one being a common definitely saw some play. At the time, a 2/3 for 2 mana was slightly above board, above your typical expectation. So green already had the more efficient creatures with, you know, sort of the grizzly bear getting your 2/2s for 2. This is before Watch Wolf came out, which was your first generic 3/3 for 2. And this has got the stats. Again, it's an elf, so it would benefit from other elf abilities, but or other elf tribal stuff you got going on. But Herloon Minotaur, when it was first printed in alpha, had a printing mistake, or so they claimed, where it was just 2 red instead of 2 red and a colorless. So this basically emulates that, except they put it in green and made it an elf. And I do remember it seeing some play, because as a 2-drop, a 2/3 wasn't bad at the time. My tales of war are the stories most asked for around the fires at night, but they're the ones I care least to tell. And the art is, you know,
neat,
impressive warrior type stuff. Then you've got Enchantress's Presence.
You're okay.
So this is an enchantment for 3. Whenever you play an enchantment spell, draw a card. This used to see play in old Rabid Wombat decks as a sort of an upgrade, being an enchantment itself, on the old Verdrunan Enchantress. I think they made another version of that as well that had Shroud or something.
I like the art.
But yeah, just encouragement to play lots of enchantments, and green was usually the best at that. Rabid Wombat is what the deck was named after, because it was a creature that got bigger for each creature enchantment on it as well. So that was way back in Legends, and then it was reprinted in Chronicles, and yeah. this type of deck did see some play for a while. It was a theme that you could sort of build around. And as time went on, Green got better enchantments. By this time, Rancor was out, and other things that were cheap little buffs like that. So those decks could be quite annoying. Next, we've got...
Ooh, that's good news, Becca. Hopefully it's fixed.
Everglow Courier. 2/1 for 3, Elf. You may choose not to untap it during your untap phase, and pay 3 and tap it as long as it remains tapped. Target Elf gets +2/+2 and trample. I think there's been one of these in most colors, or most not. Yeah, I think there's been one in each color, and each with a different creature type, because we saw a Goblin one like this too, and I seem to recall it when we were going through the other ones. Yeah, just a way to buff your other creatures, or other similar creatures. And it's about the same. This one's got haste instead of, trample instead of haste. They're not horrible. They're not great either. Explosive Vegetation. This was also in the Beast deck. And this was a great way to ramp your land base to get those big expensive spells out quicker. So you pay 4, so you got to get up to 4 first before you can use it, but search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and put them into play tapped, then shuffle your library. So go get 2 basics. This could fix your colors if you're missing that red or whatever, or needed more green or whatever other colors you were using. And it jumped you from having 4 mana available to play it up to at least 6. So this was pretty good. I always enjoyed having a couple of these in my deck when I wanted to play big beastie creatures. Speaking of some nasty surprise creatures, here's another insect. 5 cost for a 6/1, like Deadly Insect back in Alliances, except it's Gigapede. It can't be the target of spells or abilities, like Deadly Insect. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if Gigapede is in your graveyard, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, return it to your hand. So it's got a way to get it back, which Deadly Insect could not do. So this is an interesting little upgrade in that sense. And here's the Elf Avatar. 4 cost, star, trample. He just one's power and toughness equal to the number of elves in play. Again, in early elf decks, this would see some play, just because it's a big trample elf for 4. But as time went on, elves tended more and more towards combos, or just, using mana to do crazy, nasty things. So combat elves like this didn't see play as much. But again, if you were doing draft or something and we were getting a fair number of elves, this one did see a little bit of play. It wasn't one of the most used, but it wasn't one of the least either. Histodon, another beast. Rare, 5 cost for a 3/4 trample, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, which is a nice little buff. Anytime you can get extra card draw at a green, especially combos well with the trample. And Morph, so you can morph it for 3. So this one you could play a little quicker using the Morph way, because instead of paying 5, you can just play it for 3 and then morph it for 3, and potentially get a card draw out of it. It's not bad, but in terms of raw stats, if you're just going to be casting it, it is a little on the weak side. Invigorating Boon, 2 cost. Whenever a player cycles a card, you may put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Yeah, not nearly as impactful as Astral Slide, say, but another card that gives you encouragement to cycle stuff. And then here's Kamal, another one of the big legendary creatures that this one was one of the ones that's key to the story more than is one like Rorix, who was one of the champions. Kamal, back in Odyssey, his card cost 6, 2 red and 4, and was a 6/1 haste that could tap to do 3 damage to target creature or player. So it had a lightning bolt on a stick, and 6/1 haste was very ball lightning-esque, but you had to pay 6. That version, I remember seeing more play than this one, to be honest. It just came down, hit harder, was more impactful, and you didn't have to keep pouring mana into it to use its abilities. Target land becomes a 1/1 creature until end of turn, or pay 3 and 2, so 5. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and trample until end of turn. So that's the same casting cost and ability as Overrun, but on him you can do it as an instant instead of a sorcery. Overrun did see some play back in Tempest. It was a good finisher for green. All your side gets +3/+3 and trample. Can make for a big wave of attacking creatures for sure. Putting it on a creature itself. I mean, usually when this hit the table, it was just a big magnet for removal. So you wouldn't actually get to do a whole lot with it because you used your mana to bring it out. That was the problem I saw most with this. If you did get to untap afterwards, though, this could do some work, no question. My mind has changed. My strength has not.
Becca and her hubby are going to bed.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming out, Becca. Kamal's Summons. 4-cost sorcery. Each player may reveal any number of creature cards from his or her hand. Then each player puts a 2/2 green bear creature token into play for each card he or she revealed this way. So just show, ooh, I've got more creatures coming, and then you get a bear for each one. It's interesting. What's the card they made later? No, it was before this, wasn't it? And it was in Judgment. They made a card that cost 5 that put 2 bears into play, and then it was Threshold. If you've got Threshold, it puts 4 bears into play instead of for 5, and then you could flash it back as well. So yeah,
Abram,
this
I'm going to get new
seems
glasses tomorrow.
you could set it up to do just as well or better, but overall that one just was simpler to use and was a better way to get lots of bears, in my opinion.
There's no school on Monday.
Yeah, I announced that this morning at school.
So
Interesting.
I guess we're taking everyone to the hot springs?
I don't know. We'll have to figure out what we're doing with that. Croson Colossus. This one was just a big beat stick. Yeah. 6 and 3, 9 to cast is horrendously expensive, generally speaking. It is one of those cards that you could shuffle somehow onto the top of your deck for those cards that reveal mana costs and get some work out of. But you get a 9/9 creature vanilla, basically. It could morph, but it morphs for 8, which is almost as bad as the 9. You're getting it for 1 cheaper if you're playing it as a morph card first. I mean, it's definitely a surprise when your 2/2 turns into a 9/9, but that's still an awful lot of mana. This thing was just too expensive, in my opinion, and never really saw play.
But if you could get it out, that'd be a huge creature.
Oh yeah, that's all it does. But yeah, it's just a big vanilla creature. This one,
I remember I used to get giddy when I got a big creature.
less of a rate, but saw a little bit more play. Still not much because it was still too expensive. But it costs 7, which is a lot easier. 1 green, target beast gains trample until end of turn. You can do it to itself or other beasts, so that's nice. 6/6 creature for 7, though. Yeah, it's still a little bit overcosted, even at the time. At this time you could get Yavimaya Worm was out for 6/4 trample for 6. This isn't that much better for the extra mana on something that's already expensive. It was just an uncommon. But, yeah, I mean, I might draft it for a beast deck or something. This next one, though, this was kind of sweet. Also cost 7, 6/5 instead of 6/6. Sure. But the real nice thing about Krosan Tusker was the ability to cycle it. So you pay 3, discard it, draw a card if you don't have the mana to play the big beat stick. And when you cycle it, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. So it helped you ramp when you cycled it. Basically, for your 3 to cycle it, you're drawing a card and going to search for a basic land. So you're getting your 2 cards for 3 mana, or being able to play it as a beat stick. This thing was versatile in that way. It was definitely worthwhile to cycle, and if it was late in the game and you had your land on the board, it was a decent sized threat. So Krosan Tusker is one that I remember there being a fair bit of demand for. Leering Fogbeast, not so much. 4/2 for 3 isn't bad for stats, but whenever it becomes blocked to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn, yeah, I mean, self-fogging itself will generally help keep it alive, but it negates the point of the attack in the first place, usually. That's about all I have to say about that. Mythic Proportions. I remember this being somewhat impressive in some ways. Just being a big buff to your creature. Sort of like Might of Oaks, except it's an enchant creature. Might of Oaks was an instant for 4 that gave +7/+7. This costs 7, but it's permanent. It's an enchantment creature, so whatever creature you put it on is going to keep this buff as long as it's alive. But again, you're setting yourself up for a 2-for-1. The enchanted creature gets +8/+8 and has trample. That is a big buff. That'll turn anything into a big threat, because that's big threat stats in itself. So, yeah. The blood of Krosa turns rational beings into primal forces. Yeah, and there's a reference to Force of Nature, basically. 8/8 and trample. But yeah, it was just too expensive for a creature enchantment most of the time. Then we got Naturalize. So this is when Disenchant got shifted into green, basically. Up until this time, your 2-cost instant that destroyed an artifact or an enchantment, that was Disenchant, that was in white, and it was reprinted as that in a lot of sets. It was in Ice Age, it was in Mirage, it was... When was the last time they did that card? Anyway, but that was a white thing for a long time up till around here, and then they made it green. And I think it's been green ever since. So, and they stopped printing Disenchant, but there's still lots of them around. As far as I know, anyway. From here, Let the World Be Reborn. Are these tarot cards? No, they're not. It's Magic the Gathering, it's a collectible card game. Overwhelming Instinct. I think this was also in the Beast deck, or at least it got put into the Beast deck at times. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, draw a card. Yeah, any deck that likes building up multiple creatures to attack with, this could definitely be useful to help replenish your hand. I remember these being used for sure.
It's in the camper.
The biggest difference between a victory and a massacre is which side you're on.
Did I bring the honey in?
I don't know.
Don't remember.
Here's Primal Boost. Instant. Target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn, and you can cycle it. When you cycle it, you may have target creature get +1/+1 until end of turn, which can still be relevant for sure. And cycling a card, I believe, isn't the same as casting it. So you can't counterspell something when you cycle it either. So that's another thing. So you pay your 3, give something +1/+1, and draw a card. If that +1/+1 is going to keep it alive or let it finish something off or both, it can be quite the value proposition. Or if you just need the big stat buff, you've got that as an option too. Ravenous Bailoff might have been the other rare in that beast deck. This is one I used to play in some of my green decks, just because it was nice, a nice ability to have. A 4-cost 4/4 was good at the time as well. Not the best, still not quite as good as the older and Jin and stuff, but no downside. And instead, you got an upside. Sacrifice a beast, so it could be itself, could be other beasts you've got, and you gain 4 life. Sell the Croson Tusker or other, decent value ones that were around. If you needed the life in a pinch, you could get it with this. How nice was play a Bailoff in that time? Yeah, some of the Bailoffs were pretty good for sure, and this was one of the better ones, as I recall. Next, we've got Run Wild. Instant. Until end of turn, target creature gains trample and pay a green to regenerate. Which regenerating can be quite good. You got to pay extra for it here, but getting trample, generally less useful. I don't remember this being all that popular, but it could be useful to keep something alive as a surprise. Wildwood's beasts didn't seem to mind when the elves moved in. In fact, they hardly noticed them underfoot. And here's a Basilisk. Thicket Basilisk back in Alpha was a 2/4 for 5 that destroyed anything that it dealt damage to, basically. Or that any creature, was it blocking or blocked by it, actually? I think that was the original effect. Whenever Serpentine Basilisk deals damage to a creature, destroy that creature at end of combat. This is the version of the ability that they turned into Death Touch, where it has to actually damage it. The original Thicket Basilisk was better in that it just had to be anything blocking or blocked by it. At least I think it's better anyway. I suppose with Death Touch effects, you can always give it something that makes it tap to do damage, and you can off things easier that way, but I'd rather just put a lure on a Thicket Basilisk and wipe off their whole board. And it can morph. I do remember this one seeing a little bit of play, but like I say, it's just not my favorite Basilisk, that's all. You can sack Aquamoeba. I don't know. I don't remember that card off the top of my head now. Silk Lash Spider, 5 cost, 2/7. Big backside on this one. Takes a lot of damage to take it down, and it can block as though it had flying. Pay 2 green and X, and it deals X damage to each creature with flying, so it's a good way to keep a bunch of flying tokens under control as well, as being a decent blocker for flying creatures. Not a bad as far as spiders go, but a little pricier than most. Then we've got the green legendary creature, Pit Fighter. 6 cost, Sylvos Rogue Elemental. I still throw this into my green deck sometimes. I'm sure there's better cards available as just big green beat sticks, but this guy's fun. 8/5 trample and pay 1 green to regenerate him. So he's hard to get rid of under most circumstances. And yeah, 8/5 trample is a reasonable threat on the board. He was born of the Mirari, thrust out of his homeland before he was even aware. Left without purpose or meaning, he found both in the pits.
I remember trample's bad, but what does it mean again?
Basically, if you attack with this creature and it's blocked, any damage that it has left over after it killed whatever blocked it goes through to the player.
Oh, yeah, that's why I hated trample.
Right. So you throw a 1/1 in front of most big creatures, and it will kill the 1/1, and that's it. This would kill the 1/1 and still have 7 damage to deal to the player on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Snarling Undorak. This was another beast in the precon. 4 cost for a 3/3, and you can pay 3. Target beast gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It can be annoying when you don't know which beast your opponent's going to pump. And again, it's got the morph option. Most creatures in Croson Forest feared the Mirari's power. A few fed upon it. When flavor text was flavor text, yeah. I appreciate flavor text. Especially in the older sets, I find. I especially like when they incorporate like classic quotes and stuff. That's always fun. Spitting Gurna. Again, this one was in there too. It may block as though it had flying, and you can morph it. So that can be done as a surprise. But it costs 5 for 3/4. Again, not a great rate. Otherwise, Stag Beetle. 5 cost, rare insect. Stag Beetle comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of other creatures in play. So, depending on what the board's looking like, this could be a pretty good deal. But, again, it's one of those creatures that's power and toughness is entirely reliant on counters. That can be a little risky with certain cards these days. But it's interesting anyway. And it can be potentially pretty big, depending on what's going on. Oh, yes, here's another card that's missing. Boop, 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 boop. Where are we? This was Steely Resolve.
You can pick that up there.
Enchantment. When it comes into play, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type can't be the target of spells or abilities. Again, you're playing elves or something like that. You want to protect them from removal. This can help with something like that. No one in Wirewood understands what is happening. They just know it's unnatural and coming from Krosa. Yeah, potentially, definitely a useful card in a tribal themed deck. Unfortunate that I missed it. I think I'm out for the night. You guys have a good stream. Almost midnight here. Yeah, the time sure flies. Thanks for coming out, Wingweaver. Symbiotic Beast. When Symbiotic Beast is put into a graveyard from play, put 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens into play. So you get a 4/4 for 5 for 6, and when it dies, you get 4 1/1s. It's not horrible. Probably again underpowered by today's rate, but certainly it was some value back at the time. You're welcome to see you next time or in the Discord. Yep, see you next time. Thanks for coming. Symbiotic Elf. 2/2 for 4. And when it is put into a graveyard from play, put 2 insects into play. So the same as this guy, but a mini. This was a 4/4 for 6. This is a 2/2 for 4. And it only gives you 2 bugs. A little creepy. Elves arriving in Wirewood had no home, let alone weapons. But they knew that the forest would always provide. Yeah.
Have a good night, Wingweaver.
And then Symbiotic Worm. 8 cost, 7/7, and when it's put into a graveyard, put 7 1/1 insect tokens into play. So again, it could be a lot of value, but this is getting very expensive. To pay 8 for a 7/7, it's a big beat stick. It can give you some bugs, but unless you've got ways to start trick these out and ramp them or whatever. This is really something for a build around type strategy, in my opinion. Next, we've got another reprint. I think this was from Urza's block originally. Taunting Elf, 0/1 for 1 green. And all creatures able to block Taunting Elf do so. So it's got a built-in lure, which again can open the path for the rest of your creatures to get through. So potentially useful, depending on what the situation is.
Can I see that again for a minute?
Which?
Your iPad. I'm just gonna.
I just need it for the next card here.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll do it
Because
after.
I'm missing here. So after Taunting Elf is Tempting Worm. See all those lovely jewels on the side. Anyway, pay 2 for a 5/5. When Tempting Worm comes into play, each opponent may put any number of artifact, creature, enchantments, and or land cards from his or her hand into play. So basically, they can just drop whatever's in their hand for free whenever you play this.
That could be handy.
For them, I mean, you're getting a 5/5 for 2, which is, a nice beat stick for 2 mana. But when...
Oh, I misunderstood what you said.
When each opponent may... And everyone else at the table who you're playing against can play anything in their hand for free.
Is that shiny Pikachu?
That's...
that'd be very... funny looking shiny Pikachu.
I would imagine that would cause chaos at modern tables for Commander and stuff like that. But it could be fun and interesting. Next, we have Towering Baloth. This was the uncommon version, so much more easy to find than the other big beast that was 9/9 for 9. This one costs 8, and you get a 6/7. 7/6, and you can morph it for 7. But creepy. It's again just a big beast. Another Baloth. The Mirari twisted all that lived in the Croson Forest into gross mockeries of their former selves. It is.
I do not like it.
This one's cuter.
It's very cute.
Tree Spring Lorien. 6 cost for a 5/4, and you can morph it for 6. Yep, that's basically it. It's just a common 5/4 beast for 6 or morph for 6. No matter your strength, the Croson Forest is stronger. No matter your speed, the Wirewood Forest is faster. Then we've got Tribal Unity. Green, 2 and X, so pretty expensive to get going. Creatures of the type of your choice get +X/+X until end of turn. Nice pump for your board in a tribal deck, but yeah, paying 3 + X does slow it down, that's for sure. Kamel left the violence of his former life behind, but he still believes in the power of muscle. Next, we've got Venom Spout Brachus. This was another one from the Beast deck. 7 cost 5/5. Pay 2 and tap it to have it deal 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature with flying. So again, sort of anti-flying thing. And you can morph it for 5. So if you just want the body out, it's cheaper to, well, you can do it a lot easier anyway to pay it for 3 and then morph it for 5 than to just pay 7. Then here's the Green Charm, 1 for an instant. You can put a 1/1 green insect into play.
I like this card.
Or target creature gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn.
Art-wise, that is.
Or regenerate a beast.
I like the art on this one.
Yeah, it's not bad. You can get a 1/1 for 1 creature out of it, which is better than, usually generally useful. Or you got the little combat trick, +1/+1 and trample. Or if you're playing beasts, you can regenerate 1. So that's pretty specific, but, in this set especially, beasts are around. Next, we've got the Voice of the Woods. 5 cost for a 2/2. Untap 5 elves you control. Put a 7/7 green elemental token into play. With trample. So here's your elf lord from this set. If you got a bunch of elves, you can start pumping out 7/7 green elementals. That's definite threats. And if you can do it every turn with your group of elves, that certainly can add up. The ritual of making draws upon the elves' memories and pasts. And elves have long memories and ancient pasts. Next we've got Wall of Mulch. 0/4 for 2. Pay green and sacrifice a wall to draw a card. So if it's about to die, you can get a card out of it. Or if you've got other walls around and you need stuff, it's an option. As far as walls go, this really isn't horrible.
I figured
mulch is the fabric of life in the forest. Plants live in it, they die in it, and then they become part of it, feeding countless generations to come. Next, we've got Weird Harvest.
Did I delete that comment? I don't know if I did.
2 green and X. Each player may search his or her library for up to X creature cards. Reveal those cards and put them into his or her hand. Then each player who searched his or her library this way shuffles it. So, again, if you've built a deck that's designed to take advantage of this, it could be quite good.
Hey, Broly!
But being able to search up specific creatures, if it went into your hand, is the trick.
Broly's asking what this is.
This is a Weird Harvest.
No, he's talking about this.
No, well, I'm going through the Onslaught Magic the Gathering set from back in 2002. This was the last set to feature the traditional card borders and stuff before they changed up the look of the cards. And it's just some fun classic Magic the Gathering, basically sharing some of my reminiscences.
And this is part 2 because we did part 1 last Monday.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a big set. It took a lot of time, and I was fighting a cold then. I'm still not quite over it, but close. Well-Wisher. Here's an elf that taps to get you a life for every elf in play. So again, if you're building a deck with a lot of elves, this can gain you a lot of life, at the end of each of your turns or your opponent's turn before you untap. Just gain a bunch of life. 1/1 for 2. It's fairly cheap to play, and it can help keep you alive while you're assembling your combos and things. What magic set?
You might mean that I have, or he has.
I
think you might have missed an eye or something.
Ghost rare rating on it.
Or what magic has. I'm sorry, really.
Yeah, I see. If it's newer sets, I really couldn't tell you. I've heard of some new finishes and stuff that put on things, but most of my stuff is older.
Looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Ghost rare.
Yeah, I don't even know what that looks like, to tell you the truth. Sorry, I can't help with ghost rares. There's a Wirewood Elf. I like him up in the birch tree there. 1/2 for 2
worries.
And tap for a green. So basically, it's a little bit more expensive version of your Lawnmower Elf. You're paying an extra colorless mana for an extra toughness. That's the main difference. You're better off with a Lawnmower Elf, in my opinion. But again, in draft or something, it's a solid pickup.
I think I figured out why you weren't able to comment on things.
We climb more, we can see. Why is that?
Because I had, there's a thing on the settings over here. It says moderation activity, and I had that off.
Oh, okay.
So because I had you as a user as well.
Okay. Well, we'll figure stuff out maybe.
Yeah, but now I can do
Wirewood Herald. 1/1 for 2. When it's put into a graveyard from play, you may search your library for an elf card. If you do, reveal that card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So good for assembling your elf combos and stuff if you need a specific one. Problem is, it's got to die to do that. So you can usually find a way to get a creature killed, but it's still not something that, the elves usually aren't sacrificing a bunch of themselves anyway. Then we've got Wirewood Pride. Target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of elves in play. Again, as a combat trick, it's not horrible if you're playing an elf deck. Otherwise, it's pretty useless. But this is an ability that they later stuck on an elf itself that it could tap to do this, which was better generally.
I'm discovering I can have just the chat up if I just need to read the chat and don't want to see the video.
This one here was the elf another elf that made it into the beast deck.
I'm figuring out.
So 2/2 for 3. Whenever a beast comes into play, you may draw a card. So this was your card advantage engine for a beast deck. It just happened to be an elf. Then we've got Words of Wilding. So this is the word card for green. And you've got 3 mana for an enchantment. Pay 1. The next time you would draw a card this turn, put a 2/2 bear into play instead. Again, most of these words weren't that popular. It was a neat idea. It's just a little bit too niche.
Oh, it's the new set, House of Horror?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, they always like to add new stuff for the new sets.
Coming out 9/27, so...
Then we're into artifacts.
September 27th.
Right.
Yes, sorry.
Cryptic Gateway.
Oh, that's the Bloomborough set he's talking about?
No, Bloomborough was the last set that came out.
No, but the one that...
I don't know if, again, I'm not sure how related it is to Bloomborough, but
little video
it is the next set coming out anyway.
I do want to check it out a little bit, but I think it's going to be creepier.
It definitely is going to be creepier. 5 cost, artifact. Tap 2 untapped creatures you control. You may put a creature card from your hand into play that shares a creature type with each creature tapped this way. So if you've got 2 beasts in play, you can tap them to put out a bigger beast or another beast or whatever. Its lock changes to fit each key. So whichever tribal deck you're playing, this can help you get out your bigger guys with your smaller guys. Thanks. Unfortunately, it costs 5. I don't remember this actually being used all that much. Now we're into the artifacts, and there's some interesting ones for sure. And then we'll be into lands. Again, there's no multicolor cards per se in this set.
The art on this
Doom Cannon
is pretty neat, though.
Yeah, 6 cost. As Doom Cannon comes into play, choose a creature type. Pay 3 and tap it. Sacrifice a creature of the chosen type. Doom Cannon deals 3 damage to target creature or player. Having to sacrifice a creature to get your tap and pay 3 to do 3 damage. Yeah, it's just a little bit too much, or was at the time. Maybe it's easier to get creature tokens now, but it still costs 6 to play and 3 to tap and use with the set. Yeah, this thing is not that great. Next, we got the Dream Chisel. This is the tool that Extore the Reality Sculptor is using. You can see he's holding it there in the picture on the box. Pay 2 for an artifact. Face down creature spells you play cost 1 less to play. And it's not legendary, so you could have multiple of these and make your face down spells even cheaper, even quicker. So if you're playing a morph deck, this might be worth using. It does make all the morph creatures that much cheaper. I don't remember how big a thing that ended up being, to be honest. Unfortunately, the next card is another one I'm missing, but I'll show it on here. Riptide Replicator. Casting cost 4 and X on an artifact. That was still pretty unique at this time, having an X in the cost of your artifacts. There weren't a lot of those. As Riptide Replicator comes into play, choose a color and a creature type. When Riptide... so it comes into play with X charge counters on it, and you can pay 4 and tap it to put an XX creature token of the chosen color and type into play, where X is the number of charge counters on Riptide Replicator. So depending how much you paid, or if you've got ways later, I don't think at this time there was ways to add extra charge counters to this, but in later sets they made that a thing. And yeah, you could make creatures. And just looking at the art, you can see the little Riptide wizard project here. This was a foreshadowing, that silhouette of the creature they're making. In the next set, Onslaught, that was the set that brought in Wave 2 of Slivers. Before this time, Slivers had only been in the Tempest and Stronghold sets from Tempest Block. That was Wave 1 of Slivers. Now, this was going to be just before Slivers arrived for Wave 2, and that was one of the bigger hints that they were coming right there. Next, we've got Slate of Ancestry. This is still a decent card, I think. A little expensive by today's standards, probably. Hey, welcome, Darius. Slate of Ancestry, 4 cost, artifact, pay 4 and tap it to discard your hand and draw a card for each creature you control. So, if you're playing a deck with a lot of creature tokens or something, you can sure fill up your hand in a hurry. I would throw one of these sometimes into my elf deck that had lots of mana and liked to have elves sitting on the board. So it would help me dig through my deck to get even more elves and some big nasty things to play with the elves mana that they were making.
I like that card. It's neat.
It is neat.
Nice.
Yeah. And then last artifact. There weren't even a lot of artifacts in this set. Tribal Golem. A 4/4 for 6. Tribal Golem has trample as long as you control a beast. Haste as long as you control a goblin. First strike as long as you control a soldier. Flying as long as you control a wizard. And pay a black to regenerate Tribal Golem as long as you control a zombie. So this was something that would be an all-star, I think, in draft. Because being a 4/4 that you could pay with any color of mana, and got, depending whatever colors you were playing, it would get some extra abilities. And there were some decent abilities on there that it could gain. It is a rare, so it's not going to come up much. In terms of constructed, yeah, I mean, if you're playing changelings or something, that would mean you've got all those creatures in play. Maybe this would be worth playing, but even that's a stretch. But that would be the way to go nowadays, is to play some sort of changeling, or if you've got, Mistform Ultimus, speaking in this block specifically, that card would come out in the next set. It would combo okay with it, but still, it's an artifact creature, which makes it a little bit more vulnerable than some things. And it is a 6 cost 4/4, which isn't the best rate by any means. Then we're into lands, and this set has a decent number of interesting lands. In fact, that's what it's most famous for, I would say, is some of its lands. Now, to start off with, we got a whole set of cycling lands at common. So here's the black one, Barren Moor. I still see this card very, very often in Commander deck lists. Comes into play tapped. You can get a black. Or if you don't need a land right now, you can pay a black to cycle it and draw a card instead. Just that option. It's a land if you need a land. If you don't need a land, you can get rid of it for 1 mana and draw a card. It's a very nice option to have. Then we've got the first of our fetch lands. This is the series that really made this set famous, I think. These things are a little bit broken, in my opinion. They always were. I didn't see the power of them at first myself.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Got more water?
The water went down the wrong way is the problem.
Yes, I know, and more water can help. Do it.
Excuse me. Yes, maybe. Anyway, Bloodstained Mire is one of the weaker ones, but none of them are particularly weak. Pay a life, sacrifice Bloodstained Mire, search your library for a swamp or mountain card, and put that into play. Then shuffle your library. This would have been fair if it had been a basic swamp or mountain. Would have been totally fair. It helps fix your mana. But because they made just a swamp or a mountain, well, this land could get you 7, any of 7 out of the 10 dual lands, basically. Any color you want, plus, as long as one of the 2 colors from your dual land was either red or black. It's just obnoxious when combined with dual lands. And later they made other, cheaper versions of dual lands like Pain Lands. They made cards like Murmuring Bosk that counts as a forest, but can also get you white and black. There's a whole bunch of lands that these things just go nuts with in terms of mana fixing. They also thin your deck. As a side, you do have to pay a life. Small cost to pay. They are very strong in terms of mana fixing, especially when combined. But it means you need to have a lot of rares. They did make a common version of this, which you don't have to pay a life, I think, but you can, Terramorphic Expanse, I think was the first one, Evolving Wilds a little bit later, which can get you any basic land. Yeah, these were probably one of the big reasons why we got those 3 boxes of Onslaught. And like I said, we ended up opening 6 total fetch lands out of the, there's 5 in the set. We got a double of 1 and 1 of each, basically, in 3 boxes.
Can you imagine if we still had one sealed? That could be a fun one to open.
It could be. And again, with the rarity of the foils in the set, getting foil fetch lands, they're still worth a pile. And this was the first set that had them. I think Zendikar later gave the enemy color fetch lands. This had the allied color fetch lands. But to be honest, if you're combining them with some sort of dual lands, it really doesn't matter. As long as one of the colors is in your deck, as one of the main colors, you can just get anything with the duals. This is the closest the set had to multicolor cards, was lands that need 2 different colors to activate an ability on. Contested Cliffs, this is the one that's keyed to beasts, so for beast decks. They made a card like this for most of the major tribes in the set. So this taps for a colorless mana, or you can pay a red, a green, and tap it. Choose target beast you control and target creature an opponent controls. Each creature deals damage equal to its power to the other. This might have been the second rare, actually, in the beast deck, now that I think of it. I'm not entirely sure. But, yeah, it was definitely a beast deck card, and it's the 2 main colors for the beasts. The next one here, Darrow Encampment. Soldiers were primarily a white thing in this set. Tap it for a colorless, or pay a white and tap it. Target soldier gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Then we got the Flooded Strand. This is the blue fetch land, or blue and white, I should say. Again, not much else to say with that, except that, again, if you're talking blue and fetch lands, then you're getting into comboing them potentially with things like Brainstorm as well, because Brainstorm let you dig through your library, and then you had to put 2 cards that you didn't want right away necessarily on top of your library. You could then sacrifice your fetch land to shuffle them away and get some new cards. So, Yeah, I was surprised actually when I stopped to think about it how much this set I had kicking around. I still have a few holes to fill if I ever decide to try and finish it up, but I've got the fetch lands, which are probably the most sought after cards in the set anyway. But thanks, I appreciate that. I hope you find these little chats interesting. Here's the Forgotten Cave, which is like the Bajuka Bog. Comes into play tapped, or you can cycle it for a red.
I like that art.
It is neat art.
You know I'm about the art.
Yeah. These lands don't have as much flavor text, but I do find the ones that are keyed to the different tribes being somewhat flavorful in that sense anyway. Goblin Burrows. Again, goblins are tough because most of them are fairly cheap, so you don't want a lot of colorless mana. You need the red, really. But you can pay a red and a colorless and tap it. Target goblin gets +2 attack until end of turn. Again, like the Darrow encampment, it's a pretty small buff, really. Then we got the Grand Colosseum. This was meant to be a fixed version of City of Brass, which was popular back in Arabian Nights. It was reprinted in Chronicles. It was printed again in 5th edition. And that could tap for any color of mana, but dealt you a damage. This comes into play tapped, so it's a little slower. You can tap for a colorless if you just need a mana and you don't care what color it is. Or you can tap for a mana of any color and it deals 1 damage to you. So you don't have to pay life every time you use it, which is nice. If your opponent's tapping it down with an Icy Manipulator, you're not taking damage like you would with the City of Brass. But it does come into play tapped is the downside, for the upside of not being as forced to take pain. The old pain lands were similar in that you could tap them for a colorless mana from Ice Age, or to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Well, no, those were a choice of the 2 colors for the pain lands. But they didn't come into play tapped at that time either. So next we got Lonely Sandbar. Nice little picture there with the gull flying over. And again, that's the blue one that is the cycling land. Definitely, again, often used. The Polluted Delta. One thing I appreciated about these, even if I did find them a little bit annoying, was that they tried to keep the names generic enough that it could be construed as something you find in real-world landscapes, like the Flooded Strand, like the Windswept Heath, like the Polluted Delta, etc. But, yeah, so it wouldn't be forced, if they reprinted it later, to be in a set. Like, they didn't put the names of like Wirewood and Crosa and stuff like that in it to make it specific to one plane or anything. They kept it fairly generic, sort of geographic type titling, and I appreciate that. This is the most popular one in the set, or at least it used to be. Blue and black are 2 colors that are very popular in tournaments.
I don't know what this key lime person's talking about. I see 3 comments from this person, that's it. And apparently they think you know nothing.
I said I mean nothing.
What?
Oh, I don't know.
You're a guesser. Okay. This is a game called Magic the Gathering. If you are not aware of it, then I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what this guy's on about,
We
really.
might not be the place for you,
It's
so
not,
feel free to...
not tarot cards, thank you very much.
It is not. It's not tarot cards at all. Oh my goodness. Maybe ask what this is when you come in. But I hope you have a great night.
Riptide Laboratory was a little bit more used than some of the others, in terms of the ones that go with different tribes. Again, you can get a colorless from it, or pay 1 and a blue, tap it to return a wizard you control to owner's hand. So it could be used to save a creature that was about to be killed. Or if you had a wizard with a come into play effect, you could use it that way. Or replay ones that morphed, things like that. You could get a little bit more work out of Riptide Laboratory than you could some of the others that way. It's also got John Avon, which a lot of people like for the artwork. Then we got Seaside Haven. This is the bird one. Blue and white. And tap it. And sacrifice a bird to draw a card. So, again, if your birds were about to die, you can get more birds out of it. It's a little bit morbid with the bird skulls and stuff on the and bones on the cliffside, but it did help you get a little bit more value out of your birds. So if you're playing a bird deck, it was worth running a copy usually. Then we've got the Secluded Steppe. This is the white version of the ones that can cycle.
Oh boy.
And
I don't have a lot of experience with tarot cards, but I don't think these look like them.
No, not really. Starlit Sanctum.
Sorry. Oh my goodness. I appreciate you all.
This one's a little unique in that you've got two different abilities. You don't have to play black and white and tap it. So you can tap it for a colorless, pay a white and tap it, sacrifice a cleric, gain life equal to that cleric's toughness, or pay a black, tap it and sacrifice a cleric. Still very similar ability, but again, just one, and depending which one, different effect. Target player loses life equal to that cleric's power. Then you've got the Tranquil Thicket, the green one, cycling land. Unholy Grotto. This was, again, one that probably a little bit more useful than average. Pay a black and tap it to put a zombie card from your graveyard on top of your library. So you could get a key zombie back. You'd have to draw it and play it again and whatnot. But usually zombies did end up in the graveyard one way or another, and this would allow you to bring them back to your hand. So that was nice. Or bring them back on top of your library, whatever. You could also use that if you had a big fat zombie with a big fat casting cost to rig the top card of your library for those cards that cared about that as well. So yeah, this one definitely did see some play.
We just had someone come in thinking that this was tarot cards, and they were basically telling us that we are fakes or something like that, or frauds.
Hope your game's going well. Here's the Windswept Heath, which is the white-green one.
Together.
This is the only fetch land that I had a copy of before we got these boxes of the Onslaught. This was the one I had previously. And then when we bought our 3 boxes and went through them, we got one of each. And the one we got a double of was actually the Pluto Delta, which is the more valuable one. So the Pluto Delta and the Windswept Heath are the two that I have 2 copies of, and the rest I've got one of each. And then when Zendikar came out, I got one or more of all the Zendikar ones as well. So it's a good selection. I like having at least one of each fetch land as options for my deck building. Here's the Wirewood Lodge for the elves. Pay green and tap it to untap target elf. And again, a lot of elves have tap abilities that get stronger with lots of elves. So this one, again, it doesn't tap for green, and you really need the green to get the elves going. But that is a useful ability, and I have seen some people try and work this into their elf decks. Here's the Wooded Foothills. Again, here's your red-green fetch land.
I'm sorry.
And then we're on to basic lands. So there's not much to say about these. I'm just going to show the arts quickly. There is one island, I think, that I couldn't find the 4th art for. But some of these had pretty nice artwork. And again, they've still got the classic border. The only thing I don't like about these little huts I find are a little bit off. But I don't like just having a big mana symbol on my lands. I prefer the ones that actually say tap to add and explain what it does right on the card. Because that means nothing to a new player, generally speaking. Like myself, when I found those 3 islands, they said tap to add a blue, and I could see the blue mana symbol on top of the reconstruction. so I could make out how the game was supposed to play, more or less. There's a little watchtower on this one. I don't know, this one for some reason just looks a little too cartoony for my tastes in terms of the art style.
I like it.
It is cute, but and the clouds are nice. I'll give it that.
I don't know. I like a variety of different art.
Some rocks out in the water for this island. This one's a little sandier. And there's the one I couldn't find for some reason. Maybe it was the more popular art and I just used them all up in my deck. Here's a swamp. Swamps are always the hardest to make look appealing, in my opinion.
It's still kind of neat art, though.
Yeah, not bad. Rotting trees, very common feature in on these swamps. This one, they did a good job with the ruin in the background there, and then the trees reflecting in the water. I do think this art is very nice. Good job, Doug Chaffee. This one with the little flower thing. Again, Dan Fraser. He's been a magic artist for a long time, and this is probably one of his more detailed pieces, I think. At least that I can recall. There's another one with ruins in the background. Pete Ventures. Swamps. Then we're on to our mountains and forests, which go with the stuff we were playing. This is again a little bit cartoony. You get to the holes in the mountainside there, probably full of goblins or something. I like the bridge on this one. I think that's pretty neat looking. There's little bridges across these spires and peaks, and you can see the path going at peaks, and the path going up the side of the mountain there behind them. Some of the swamps are nice for sure. I do think they did well with the mist and the reflections on those. Yeah, I'll get to those once we get through these.
Those are really nice looking.
I do think so. There's another mountain, and then the green. A lot of the underbrush and foliage in these and little plants.
The
I think
borders
they did a good job.
On the lands are nice.
Yeah, I do prefer the classic borders for sure. This one looks a little too cartoony.
Even like the part around here,
yeah,
that's nice.
They look more substantial to me, like stone almost.
The art on this one's really
This
nice.
one is one of my favorite forests for sure from this set. The light just coming down through the tree trunks and the contrast.
It's pretty.
Very evocative.
I could take that picture and put it, get it made bigger and have it as a wall art.
Almost.
I like that.
And then here's some, again, more sort of birchy trunks.
Yeah, I really like that.
And that's it for the set.
Except for the...
But this set, like I said, was one of the early sets that still featured foils and had being one of the last sets with the old card borders. And it was at a time when foils were not so easy to come by. You didn't get a foil in every pack. I forget exactly how many foils you got, what the odds of hitting a foil were, but I can only remember about 3 foil rares out of the 3 boxes. We might have gotten a 4th or 5th that I'm just not remembering. But yeah, I pulled together a bunch of the foils we got from this, and they look nice on the sheet there. I'll just go through them quickly, just because we've already talked about the cards, but I just think the foil finish on these looks nice.
I like this one.
So we got the Dawning Pursuit there. And again, they didn't foil the artwork. Like, remember the Decipher foils we were pulling out of Fellowship of the Ring? That was pretty much contemporary with this, but they incorporated some foil elements into the art itself as well, which I think is a better way to do it. But these do just look nice with the borders foiled. Demystify. Dive Bomber. Bird Soldier there. There's a Glory Seeker. Gust Cloak Runner. In Spirit. Sunfire Bomb. Essence Fracture. This could have looked really... Imagine if some of those loyal lines were foiled. Ixtor's Will. And we got Read the Runes. Trickery Charm. The marbled stone look for the blue border, I think, is probably my favorite of all the colors in terms of the border. I do like the old lace that they used to have on the white for the card text box. They sort of got away from that, though. Backslide there.
Tank says he loves the swamps.
Yeah, the swamps were nice. I think I saw that comment when we were still back in the basic lands.
Sorry, my comments
that Minotaur
aren't
is so expressive.
When they're supposed to. So it's a little
Not a great
delayed
card.
on here for some reason.
A Feto Vulture picking at zombie
this
hand
one up
coming
here.
in.
I like the art on that one.
Yeah, the Trickery Charm.
It's pretty.
It is nice.
Maybe when we're done this, we can do that one for a Rage or Hate It.
There's Disciple
I like
of
the art.
Malice. Maybe. Oh, here's one of the... Yeah, I guess I forgot this
That's
one.
creepy
So
looking.
we probably had four, maybe 5 rares out of the
I don't
3
like
boxes.
That art.
Yeah, it's a creepy zombie cat, yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love
Trophy,
cats.
There's a zombie goblin, because goblins aren't wretched enough. Festering Fiend, Haunted Cadaver.
That's neat
Misery
art.
Charm.
I mean, I know it's a skull, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah. There's one of those Ether charges that we started the stream with. Erratic Explosion. Solar Blast. 3 damage to target creature, player, and cycling.
I don't know why anybody, just because you don't like something, has to come in and make comments like that. It's not necessary.
This is one of my rares. Like I said, this is probably one of the top 2 rares I pulled out of this set in terms of a foil rare. I got the Patriarch Spinning. I also got the what was it called? I don't think I pulled it into this because it's in one of my decks.
I feel like this person came into one of our streams before and started being making rude comments.
But yeah, this can bring a bunch of creatures back from the graveyard to play, so potentially pretty strong card. Same thing with the what was it? The big red 8-cost Overwhelm that pulls all the creature cards from your opponents and gives them to you to attack with.
That's not, yeah.
Anyway,
I just hid that person.
Got an Elvish Pioneer, the Umbrask.
It's not.
There's an Unholy Grotto.
What's your favorite card?
My favorite card from this set?
Do you mean this set or in general for Magic the Gathering? Yeah, I feel like that person's caused us trouble before.
I don't know.
So I don't need that crap.
Anyway.
In general, from all that we have.
From all that we have.
It's a lot of fun
I've
cards.
Been asked this before. There are. I mean, Chaos Orb is just fun. I do have one. I've had a couple over the years, but I think. Well, there's cards that I like for sentimental reasons, and then there's cards that I like just flavor-wise and things. And I think, honestly, the Library of Alexandria, like I mentioned before, for its connection to actual real-world history, strong card in the game, just the type of game that it tends to lean towards is sort of control strategies, which I like. This is just a bunch of things about that one. It's probably right up there with one of my favorites. It's really hard to pick a favorite, though. But that's probably, if I'm looking for something just fun and crazy, I like Chaos Orb. But more often, I'd say those are probably two of my favorites. It's really hard to pick. Anyway. But, yeah, I like Onslaught. And like I said, it leans into Legions, which was the next set in the block. And that brought out a bunch more. Every card in Legions, I think, was a creature card. Which is very unique for sets and made for a very unique draft experience in its way. But as you can expect, with the tribal theme already established and that many creatures, Magic has the best artwork out of all card games. Ooh, that's... Magic has some great artwork. It also has some real misses. It's hit or miss. That's really all I have to say with regard to that. Some of these comments are really funny.
Oh, you mean the one I just deleted?
Yeah, which makes absolutely no sense in the context.
Especially since we have kids.
Yeah, you would think. Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
I don't understand why people do this.
I don't know. I think
we're old enough that it doesn't really. Any Black Lotus before? Oh man, and all my
have I ever had one? Do you mean, or have I It's a nice card, but they are hard to find. Even the little lotus petals. I remember when that came out. That was such a treat. Even as a common, it was just brought back the flavor.
I think some people just assume people who are into card games and things like that and considered geeks.
Maybe that's part of it.
They obviously don't hang out with a lot of
and they
geeks.
Don't, and they don't know much about our channel either.
No, they just come in and just make comments, and that's
I like a lot of the old cards. They're fun.
We have a lot of fun on this channel, and
some of the old cards are worth crazy money. These aren't, but
no,
but they're fun old ones.
If you go back and look at some of our older content, we do have some our older streams.
And a lot of the cards I've collected over the years, it's just memories. I remember, what town I was in, what I was doing at that stage of my life when I was able to find this and add it to my collection or whatever. That's half, the cards I have that are actually worth some money, half of them have things like that attached to them that, a geek would be someone who goes on YouTube lives and tries. Yeah. Well, there's lots of definitions of that term, and it's changed over the years too.
Tank just hit him. I just deleted the comment, but
it doesn't really matter.
People comes in making those. It's fine. My mods can, they know what to do.
But I've enjoyed going through some of my old sets, that I've shared over the years. I started out sharing the first set I ever collected, which was Homelands. We did Fallen Empires. We did Alliances. Two other sets that I had collected over the years. That Alliances set I showed was my second time trying to collect it because I traded it away for my first power card.
Don't play.
Then we did some other sets that were interesting, like Stronghold and Portal 3 Kingdoms, and
we've been collecting for a long time.
We sure have. And I don't know if I'll get another set together to do sets. It's hard to get enough of a set to really make it worthwhile to do something like this, but if I do, I'm glad to do that, or I'm thinking of going more into themes and other stuff. Like I said, I want to do a stream on Slivers. They've been a popular tribe for a long time. No, I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh! There's about a dozen card games that I played back when I was in high school, and there's a couple more that I've picked up and want to try over the years.
Obviously, if you looked at our channel, besides the Magic part, we do collect several other sets, and Pokemon is the one that I like, but mainly for the art. I don't really play.
And Pokemon was something the kids were getting into too.
Yeah, and that's why we kind of brought our attention to it.
That sort of brought us back into the collectible card game type, or trading card game, whatever. Stuff again after we'd been out of it for about a decade. It's just a lot of fun stuff. That brings back memories at this point.
Something we can do with our kids. And
Thomas likes Star Wars, and he was interested to try out the Star Trek one, and there's other games with other themes and properties.
Ezra's starting to like Pokemon cards, although he just likes having piles of them. He goes around collecting piles, not even asking. He's like, "Oh, these are my Pokemon cards." Thomas threw a whole bunch of the garbage that he had all over the floor today.
Where did the other one go? Because we're doing in the foils here. Did I? Yeah, Solar Blast. Was that 234?
I'm 32. I used to have 3 first edition Hollow Charizards that I traded for $20 when they first came out. I about died when I found out how much they go for now. Yeah. Yeah. We only started really collecting the Pokemon when Crown Zenith came out, which was a couple years ago.
Did I skip this page?
Papa Spocat here had
I did, didn't I?
Oh, you missed some. He had some old Pokemon cards.
I completely skipped a page.
Oh. For those who are still here, we have some that he forgot to show. So
the Scale Skin Bruiser, Trample, 4/4 for 7. Ugh. When it attacks, it gets +3 attack until end of turn for each other attacking beast. So that with that trample, that could get quite nasty. Granted, if you have other beasts to swing with it, but a 4/4 for 7 isn't great, and will probably die before you get to actually do that. Then you've got Shock. Again, this was a reprint. Shock first came out back in Tempest. Or was it Stronghold? Kindle was in Tempest, and Shock, I think, was in Stronghold the first time. Anyway, 1 red for 2 damage to target creature or player. This was another version. This is their second real attempt at fixing Lightning Bolt. The first was Incinerate, which was pretty good too.
do y'all play Magic or just collect? I
used to play Magic, but I don't get the opportunity to play much anymore. But I used to play it.
Now, once we started having kids, playing kind of went out the window.
You know, if one of the kids gets into it, I'll happily start playing again. But time will tell. Skirk Commando, 2/1 for 3. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may have it deal 2 damage to target creature that player controls, so that can be very effective. And it's got Morph, so you can do it by surprise. Then you've got the Skirk Fire Marshal. So here's the Goblin Lord. How did I not recognize that I missed this? Anyway, 5 for a 2/2 protection from red. So in a Goblin Mirror match... anyway, tap 5 untapped goblins you control, and it deals 10 damage to each creature and each player. That's a lot.
That's probably why you like playing this game so much, because how much you gotta think and strategize, eh?
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. And it's a fairly simple game when you get down to the basics. There's a lot of complexity the more cards are available and different combos you can find.
And you tried
but
to
in
teach
terms
me,
of just
in
terms of just the basics, you tap your lands, you got to get the right colors, you play some creatures, you know, it's basic, it's fun, there's some strategy to it. This is something that I would tend to play with, like the damage doublers and things that shuffle things out. But yeah, that can be nasty.
How did you miss this page?
I don't know. I probably did the front of it and then thought I'd done both sides and then just went on to the next page. Anyway, Skirk Prospector. Sacrifice a goblin to add red to your mana pool. This, yeah, that can do a lot too. It can certainly get you mana to get your bigger stuff out in a hurry, or if you've got a pile of goblins in play, you can sacrifice them all for a massive strike with a fireball or something. It gives you a sacrifice outlet if nothing else. Like, not bad for a 1-drop. Skittering Valisk. 7 cost, 5/5 at the beginning of your upkeep. Flip a coin. If you lose the flip, turn Skittering Valisk face down. So it tends to like to shrink back, which is a little bit unique. And you can morph it for 6.
No, this is Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
We have a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh!
It is a fun
or people
game.
who want us to do Yu-Gi-Oh! But we just have not
and here's Slice and Dice. This is another 4 damage to each creature. So it's a great big double pyroclasm. Costs 6.
Appreciate
or
it.
you can cycle it
coming out
to do 1 damage to each creature and draw a card. And it can't be countered that way. So that's very nice, especially if you're dealing with an opponent who's making a bunch of 1/1 tokens. this can clear the board of them and draw you a card. Or if you need more damage, yeah, you can save up and pay the full 6. But yeah, nice option on the slice and dice. I remember this being quite popular. Snapping Thrag, 3/3 for 5. And when Snapping Thrag deals combat damage to a player, you may have it deal 3 damage to target creature that player controls. So again, similar to the Skirk Commando, but a little bit bigger and a beast. And you can morph it for 6. And then the last one here was the Solar Blast. This is what triggered that I missed something to me, because I saw the foil Solar Blast, and I didn't remember talking about it. So, got me thinking. 4 cost, Solar Blast deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So, you're paying an extra 3 for your Lightning Bolt. Usually that effect, you could get for 1 or 2 mana for if Lightning Bolt wasn't available in the format. But then you can cycle it, which is the interesting part. You got to pay 3. Have it 1 damage to target creature or player, which is still potentially useful, and draw a card. So that basically turns it into a flare from Ice Age. Or I think it was reprinted as well. It was 1 damage with a cantrip. Except it can't be countered. And yeah, you've got the option of the 3 too. So I remember sometimes this was used, definitely slice and dice, popular in some decks and sideboards and things. And then again, more goblin-y goodness and shock. And this was a decent page. I don't know how the heck I missed that, but what's going on?
No, I accidentally made my screen go big and I was having trouble making it go small again.
But yeah, again, the set with the morph creatures and this block, like I said, was really good for creatures and themes and things like that.
On you.
Sure, why not? My hair. But yeah. Legions coming up with the all creature set was quite unique. They were doing a lot of experimenting with the secondary sets in the blocks at this time. The previous block, Odyssey, had Torment and Legions as the 2 follow-up sets, which were not evenly distributed in colors. Torment was a black heavy set, and then Judgment was very green-white heavy, and introduced things like wishes and things. It was a fun time for Magic the Gathering. When the set came out again, Legions, lots more tribal cards, which are always good fun, and it brought back slivers, very fun. I do plan on, I think maybe next Monday, if we have time, I'll do a sliver theme stream. That could be fun. I've got a box full of slivers somewhere, and again, focus mainly on the first 3 waves. Because after wave 4 hit, they started to change slivers, so they weren't, well, I'll get into it at the time. Anyway, and then Scourge. Scourge was the last set with the original frames, and that introduced the Storm mechanic, because I think Dragonstorm was in Scourge, wasn't it? Anyways, yeah, Storm was a whole thing. That really set off. I remember Dragonstorm was just a fun themey card, but just the way that it synergized with cards like the red and black mana rituals that were around, especially that started to come out, because Mirrodin was the next block, and that brought out Seething Song, and you had, of course, Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, and a lot of big dragons.
I like dragons.
You could go get. So I had a Dragonstorm deck for years. I don't know if I still have it somewhere, but
I just like dragons.
Yeah, but Onslaught was really a part of that shift towards these tribal decks, and one of the last big hurrahs for the old school borders. The fetch lands worked so well with the dual lands; it was just sick. I was still a bit of a traditionalist, and at that point, I'd still collected a good number of dual lands. So I preferred to just stick with them, and was a bit of a stick in the mud and didn't like the fetch lands as much. But they do combo stupidly well together. No, I've never seen that one, to be honest. So apparently there's a divorced dad's card game. I've heard of it. I heard of it somewhere, but I don't know anything about it. And I don't care enough to go look at it.
We got so many other cards that we're interested in.
There's stuff like every so often too we find interesting finds, like that Monty Python binder that we went through on Saturday. A Monty Python and the Holy Grail card game, which I'd heard about but never actually seen any cards of in person. And we've still got some Harry Potter cards which I picked up, which I'll look at getting into at some point. We're partway through going through a bunch of the Star Trek sets.
Another YouTuber created
opening booster boxes.
You know what? I think I might have heard about it.
I've got some of the Decipher's Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Had picked up a couple booster boxes of that. We've opened one and started to build a set out of it. I've got a second one that I'm looking forward to doing in a couple of weeks. So yeah, if any of that potentially interests you, I hope you come back and join us again. But yeah, we better start to wrap this one up. I think it's
don't
getting
know.
late, and we got plans tomorrow.
I don't know if anyone really.
I need to do something with my hair and my beard.
We need to start. We need to find some magic people to send people to, or to like redirect to, or like even if they go watch videos on them.
Well, I don't know.
Just for the magic theme nights. I mean, there's other people I could redirect to, but
there's lots of people who like to comment on magic stuff. I don't know. The big channels are generally the ones I watch, and they're doing so much better that it'll be kind of silly. But
no, but I mean, if you want to try and connect people to other magic people that you enjoy, that's a good way to do it. Just to.
I don't know. Sometimes I watch some of the Moxman stuff. Sometimes I do the. There's a guy who does magic parody videos that I like to. Sort of Weird Al style stuff, which I enjoy. Okay, sometimes.
What's that channel?
I'm trying to remember the name, and I don't right now. Then you've got stuff like Nisa Hone, who does the sort of magic top tens and stuff, or it's and then you've got sort of history guy channels, and you've got it's. There's a lot of interesting content out there if you're looking for stuff, but
Shivers, Magic the Gathering parody.
Yeah, that's MTG Remy. He does that's the one who does some of the songs. If you know his cards, but he's popular enough as it is, I think. But anyway.
No, it's still people that know them.
Some of the stuff he does, we're family channel, we try and keep it that way.
Yeah, family friendly.
A lot of people tend to get into the cruder side of things, and that's fine, if that's what you like, but
it's just because our kids are always around, so
yeah, we try
to keep it family friendly.
Stuff. That said, life is life, and you can't always avoid it either. So,
here's somebody. He's just got 300 subscribers.
Fortnite and Pokemon. That's
you know what? I'm gonna. If you guys like Fortnite and Pokemon, I'll send you over to this guy.
But yeah, I had fun in digging around, and then you find things like here's the rule insert for Onslaught that we did at the start. I've been thinking of other sets. Most of the sets
that's Poketier
that I might have enough to do from this point on will be more recent stuff. And I wanted to hit this one because it still had the classic borders. It was still from that early stage of Magic the Gathering that I appreciate so much.
You're a strong black man. Keep your head up, bro.
I don't know who he's talking to, but we appreciate the support. So whatever.
Yeah. No, you have a great night. If you guys want to go watch a bit of Pokemon and Fortnite, go watch Poketier. Just go in and say Spocat raid. And in case you're wondering what Spocat is, it's a short for shiny pieces of cardboard and things. So yeah, head over there, give them some love, And
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
thanks for watching. If you want to watch, Thursday is going to be our next Pokemon stream. We're probably going to have two, we'll probably have two streams that day. We're going to have a short one in the middle of the day when we normally do, and probably an evening one. So we're just deciding what to do. So yeah, so head over there. I'm gonna end this pretty soon, and I hope you all have a great night.
Yeah, thanks for coming
I
out.
appreciate it, guys.
Enjoying, some of my old reminiscences on some of these old cards and sets. It's a lot of fun for me to go back and go through some of this stuff. Simpler times in our lives and simpler times in the world, probably, but some things were changing then too.
Yeah, please go over there, hit the like button, leave a comment, and I hope you guys have a great night.
Yeah.
So
thanks for coming out.
Bye for now.
Have a good night.
We'll see you soon.